on your browser. The extension only takes 1 to 2 minutes to download and will provide the best video and audio quality. We encourage you to engage with today's speakers and by asking questions. Please use the Q&A function on the right-hand panel to submit your questions throughout today's live cast. If the Q&A function does not automatically appear, you can open this function by clicking on the button with 3 small dots on the bottom of your screen. And it's not too late to invite a colleague to today's live cast. So if you know of someone who may be interested in the topic, feel free to forward them the same URL you used to log in. For anyone not available during this fireside chat, they'll be able to watch today's series on demand. We'll send a follow-up email with this information after the webinar. And for anyone looking for a dial-in number, this live cast can be dialed into. Open the same widget as the Q&A and choose audio connection. Then provide your cell phone number and dial in. This will give you an audio connection, but not a visual. And for the best WebEx experience, we suggest having a visual open on your computer. We recommend closing out all other browsers on your computer for the best possible connection. Lastly, for a great viewing experience, change your WebEx viewing screen to a grid view. You can find this option in the top right corner of your screen. Also, be sure to engage with us on Twitter and LinkedIn using the hashtag #BILivecast. And lastly, thank you to Cisco WebEx for being the official technology partner of Brand Innovators Virtual Summits and facilitating a great virtual event experience. We hope you are looking forward to today's live cast. We're going to be hearing from marketing leaders from Wholesome Wave, PepsiCo, IHOP, Taco John's, Health-Ade, Panera, and more. We encourage you to engage with the speakers and ask questions during each session. I'll be back in between sessions to introduce our next group of speakers. And without further ado, I'm thrilled to introduce our first speakers of the day. RJ Keeney of Panera Bread and Stephen Clifford of Gimbal. RJ Keeney is the digital media lead at Panera Bread. He oversees paid media strategies across digital channels with a focus on audience strategy and measurement. Prior to diving deep into the world of Bread Bowls, he spent his career agency side for 9 years, proving his skills across search, display, social, ad tech, and media measurement. This session will be moderated by Stephen Clifford, who is the head of sales at Gimbal. Welcome to the stage, guys.
Thank you, Pearl. Nice to be here.
Yeah. Quick thing before you guys start. RJ, I hear you have a 100% success rate at escape rooms.
I do. I love a good puzzle, and I'm always able to figure it out.
Or is it like 10 out of 10?
Oh, we're talking 30 out of 30.
Woo.
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty impressive.
I'll always get out of the room.
Really?
All right. Well, I'll let you guys take the stage. I'll be back towards the end of your session. So please feel free.
Thanks, Pearl. Appreciate it. Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to the Brand Innovators webinar with Gimbal and Panera. My name is Stephen Clifford, and I'm the head of sales on the East Coast for Gimbal. I'm very excited to be here today and speak with a friend of mine, RJ Keeney from Panera, for the next 60 minutes. I hope you all get something out of this conversation. We'll talk business, strategy, and have a little fun along the way. We'll also be doing Q&A at the end, and I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts, questions, and anything else you'd like to share. A little about me. I've been in digital media for 14 years and currently with Gimbal for 2.5 years. For those unfamiliar with Gimbal, at our core, we are a technology company. We develop location-driven products that provide solutions to help brands master the customer journey, offering a more personalized approach to advertising and marketing. We have both a media component and a SaaS platform for enterprise companies looking to power their mobile applications via our location SDK, geofence software, and proximity hardware. On the media side, otherwise known as our ad platform, we use our identity graph to combine online behavior patterns and tie that back to our proprietary SDK to bridge the online and offline gap. We are fortunate enough to work with Panera on both sides of our business, which has really enabled them to get a more holistic view of their customers and create better advertising experience across the board. RJ and I have been working together for the past year on the media side of things. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce RJ, who is our digital media lead for Panera. Welcome, RJ. How is it going today, buddy?
It goes great, Stephen. Thanks for asking. Glad to be here.
Excellent. I want to talk about a little bit about your introduction of who you are, get the people to get knowing. Over the last year, I've gotten to know you from both personal side of things and professionally. And I'm really excited about, working with you in the last 2 weeks, even just gearing up for this Brand Innovators webinar that we had. and learning more about, what Panera's goals were in the beginning, what the goals were at the end. So I think we're going to hit up on a lot of things today that I'm really excited about. But first, I wanted to get the people that are watching this live cast a little bit more about who you are and how you got into media.
Yeah, I mean, so my introductory into media started out with just my overall job hunt after I graduated from college. During my years in school, I had a heavy interest in analytics and really intrigued by more of a creative application to data. And that just fit in beautifully with the world of digital media and advertising. A friend of mine from college, actually, she had worked in an agency for a year when I was sort of getting into the job research phase. And so she connected me to the agency that she worked with. I had 2 interviews and then started as an intern and just began my beautiful sort of roadmap in the agency world for 9 years. And so I started out in search. And then as the digital media landscape continued to evolve between like 2010 to 2018, my interest in just new programs and innovation and data application continued to grow. And I then developed more of a focus within digital analytics in particular and holistic cross-channel strategies, which then kind of guided me over towards the opportunities here at Panera.
Yeah, what I've learned about you over the last year plus that we've been working together is you always ask very specific questions on what you're looking to do. You always have something in mind of not only this is what we want to accomplish now, but here's what we want to accomplish 2-3 steps from now. So you're very forward thinking in what you're doing. I appreciate that as a client. What was your experience with Panera before joining the team? So I think a lot of this is that we talk about customers and more people and what they think about when they think of the brand Panera Bread. But before you joined them, clearly Panera's been around for a while. So what was your experience with Panera? What were your thoughts of them?
I mean, my experience is just a very happy customer. I mean, that's kind of a bit of the draw to coming up to a great company that has such mass market appeal and really a company that I can relate with as the consumer. I mean, so I just remember times going Black Friday shopping with my mom and like always stopping at Panera, like after we made our first round of shops early in the morning. I remember my high school friends working at Panera's and bringing in the day-old pastries into school the next day, and they were just rock stars for bringing in like the cinnamon crunch bagels and the cinnamon rolls and the scones and everything else. And so it was great to work for a brand that I had such a rich history with, just sort of like as I grew up. Our family would always go to Panera, and so it was exciting to join the company and really get to understand the operations in and out and really see sort of the innovation happening from the inside.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting to say because I think when Panera came on board, it was that cleaner version, that healthier version to QSRs. And I think growing up in the '80s, you always had the hamburger chains. And it's something that we always had as an option, and people liked growing up eating that. And then when Panera came on board, it was, listen, you don't have to eat a hamburger and fries and a soda. You can also get another good meal quick in a way that can identify with. And I think one of the questions that I want to put out to the board or to the listeners out there, and feel free to throw it in the chat where Eric and I are interested in hearing this, is that when you think of Panera, what food or what drink specifically do you think about? I know for McDonald's, I'll pick, the Big Mac, but for Panera, what is the specific product or food that you think of when it first comes to your head? The first thing, I can go first. The first thing that I think of is that bread bowl, soup. In high school and even college growing up, I always yearned for that bread bowl that that chicken soup or the clam chowder bread bowl that they would throw in there. So that was something that I always looked forward to. What about you, RJ?
Yeah, right now, if I was looking at my order history, my most often you pick to is currently the chicken teriyaki sandwich with a tomato soup with a side of bread. Historically, throughout the summer, I was pretty heavy into the green goddess salads, but that's what's been fun is that the product line is so diverse, and it's fun to pick and choose different things and also get into a little bit more of the customization as well.
Yeah, I agree. It's great how that evolved. Speaking of evolving, how long have you been with Panera, first of all, and how has your role changed from that? I know you mentioned you started as an intern and you evolved there, but how has that changed for you over the time, and what is your current role now?
Yep. So I've been with Panera now for 1.5 years, and my roles really evolved during my time here. When I first started at Panera, the realm was a lot of opportunity in advancing further within digital media, setting up tagging, setting up measurement, getting a better understanding of how our campaigns are performing for us. And so a lot of my building blocks starting in was, hey, here's everything that we're running. We need to get a better understanding of how media is impacting sales. Go. And so I figured out a lot of different ways to pull those elements together, implement tags, connect really my Panera data into our sort of like media funnels and pipelines. Um, and that was really sort of like where I began. Now that we started to evolve, the role is shifted a lot more in terms of like setting up those building blocks to evangelizing the data that we have and really using it for forward thinking purposes and really defining out sort of some of those like key questions like how high is high, like jumping in more in performance marketing, continuing to fuel the story of budget opportunities and ability for digital media in particular to make significant impact on sales. Um, and then advancing a lot more around creative insights and opportunities has been really exciting being on this end. And since Panera is a company that there's so many different ways in that we could approach the creative landscape. And it's a company that is also rooted in wellness and fun and good for you. And so there's still so much opportunity to grow and advance within the role that I have now. And that's honestly what I'm really looking forward to within the months and years ahead.
Yeah, and one of the things you mentioned, is being creative and their messaging. What is that somewhat that has kept you at Panera, or is looking getting you excited about the future at Panera? Can you speak about the culture a little bit at Panera Bread?
Yeah, I think a few of the things that are definitely keeping me here is the way that the brand continues to change and evolve. I mean, for those of you who are really keeping a close eye on Panera, you'll know that we've had a lot of significant senior leadership changes. The way that the brand is going to continue to perform and pivot to adapt to current economic situations and sort of cultural moments is going to continue to be exciting. And I'm thrilled that I get to play a part of that in terms of understanding how do we take all of these operational adjustments and product line adjustments that we're continuing to evolve on, and how do we craft that around excellence within digital advertising in particular. And so as the brand continues to evolve and grow, I'm genuinely excited about the roadmap that we're setting for ourselves, and then also the ability to continue to evolve our own digital media practices. Historically, digital media was not necessarily first and foremost within our overall media structure, but especially throughout this time frame, as well as moving forward, our digital media investment continues to grow, and I'm thrilled that I get to play a part with that.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful, and it's exciting to hear. One of the things that you and I talked about before is 2020, and obviously COVID has thrown everything for a loop here. How has communication internally been for you guys, knowing that you were in the office in Needham, for at least 4 or 5 days a week? Now that you're not, how has that changed your communication internally, good or the bad, or what are the positives and negatives that you felt have come of this, just working internally with Panera or agency relationships or even just vendors?
Yeah, there actually has been a few positives that I was genuinely surprised by. I think, especially in regards to our conversations with our agencies and other partners, a lot of times things that would have been a speaker phone call have now all become sort of like these video conferences. And so I actually feel that our relationships with our agencies and external partners has sometimes even grown because we're having more face-to-face conversations, and it's really broken a lot of barriers of the voice over the speaker. In terms of even working internally, I think some of the benefits have been is that historically Panera has been sort of segmented to 2 offices. Our headquarters are in St. Louis, and the large majority of our company sits there. In Needham, our offices are a lot smaller, but we also have a larger presence within senior leadership. And it's really broken that barrier. I think we have more cross-functional groups now who are having conversations more regularly and also just on the fly because everyone's operating on this virtual modem. So it's really, I think, even the playing field in that way. I think the one thing that I probably miss the most is just those casual conversations with senior leaders and having some of that visibility where we'd both just be in the kitchen having lunch or just having a quick conversation in the hallways or just around the desks. So I think that's the one thing that I probably missed, but overall, it has been, I think, a very easy transition overall, and working in this new atmosphere.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I do. Being a somewhat of an extrovert myself, I enjoy that stimulation and being around people and not having that, especially in the beginning part of this when we were in complete lockdown. It was very tough. And I think I get along with my sales team, and having that interaction daily, whether you're busting each other's chops or just encouraging people on different tactics and strategies to get people's attention and to get the message out. It's certainly something I miss, but I think what the benefit is that, and I think this echoes with a lot of people that you and I speak with, is that we can be productive. We show now people that you're allowed to be productive and work from home. It was certainly an adjustment at first, but I think going out and showing people that you can get your work done and get work done at a high level is something that, it opens up the door to more flexibility in the workspace. And I think that's something that is going to be welcome across the board, because if we can cut down commute and get down a better product and work better, I think it's only going to help our efficiencies. And I think that was the main thing that leaders didn't want to have, is lack of efficiency, and where we're allowing people to work from home. And by having these face-to-face conversations more, because normally we would have a once a week meeting or once a month meeting, and we go in and we talk about it. But now we're on the phone maybe a couple times a week, in the first 5 minutes catching up personally, and then we start getting into the business. I think that's something that is something that where a lot of things we're going to look back and see the positives about this.
Totally agree.
So Panera's been in the press a lot, and I want to share with some of the audience some of the clippings that we pulled together. It's pretty exciting to see you guys being very active and being very flexible on your messaging and what you're doing. So I'm going to share a few slides here and then allow you to talk through some of the releases.
Yeah, let's go through the best of.
Okay.
All right. So starting out, I just wanted to start out with where Panera was and what our key focuses were going into sort of the COVID timeframe. We internally had been talking about coffee subscription and subscriptions in general for a very long time. There was so much buildup for us as a brand going into the unlimited coffee subscription for $8.99 a month. We were being seen as a disruptor within the coffee space and like the Netflix for coffee. And we were so excited about this momentum and build. And then all of a sudden, of course, everyone was more at home during this time frame, right after we were starting to get this up and going. We had a huge campaign around brand acts, PR, TV, digital, everything ready to go after this press release was released on the 27th. And a lot of the media was beginning on March 2nd. So with a lot of the occurrences happening around like the March 14th, 15th timeframe, as you guys can imagine, we had to change significantly very fast, and we had to do a bunch of reconciliation about what were our commitments that we were locked into, where do we have flexibility to push that later. And there, at this point, I mean, there was a lot of uncertainty about, okay, how do we adjust as a brand, especially within some of our core messages, knowing that we had things that were planned out that were largely about getting consumers to come into the cafe and increase a lot of the adoption, a lot of the visitation in particular, which is what the coffee subscription was truly aimed for.
Yeah, no. So this was released on the 27th of February, and while the pandemic was building up across the globe, we didn't really see country lockdowns until early March. So when you released this on February 27th, was this the original date you wanted to release it, and then how did it? Were you guys not so much pushing this narrative or pushing this marketing solution into March, or were you continuing to do that throughout March and April?
Yeah, so the dates on this changed a few bits, but our big media pushes were always set to go live on March 2nd. And so we started to go live with some of our channels that were aimed towards that, but we had to immediately scale back once we were just reacting to kind of like what happened. If you go to the next slide, we can get into this. So, I mean, Panera acted quickly. We immediately began to shut down cafes, whether that be shutting down just the dine-in portions, but then also there's a lot of temporary closures as well to just help protect our variable costs. And then we immediately came back with and just were promoting within all of our email communications, one-to-one, digital, and everywhere, just how we were operating as a business and really provide full transparency to the consumer about how Panera is going to continue to take care of them when they're choosing to order through us. And so we were promoting a lot about ordering via digital channels, pushing delivery, drive-through. And there was tons of associate communication as well in terms of cafe operations internally to ensure that not only we were keeping our customers safe, but also keeping our associate family top of mind as well, and ensuring that they don't feel pressured to coming in on a day-to-day basis and continuing to work during these difficult times. And so I was thrilled to see that the speed of action that Panera was taking within just the reaction to the overall consumer landscape.
Yeah, it goes to talk about the forward thinking that you adopt and the rest of Panera as a brand does.
Yeah, I mean, oh, sorry, go for it.
So here we have the next one in April 8th that was released, and I think this one speaks to a lot of it. Of what I think of when I hear Panera is the healthy products that you guys put out there, and how you're locally sourced and from different from farms across the regional area that you have your Panera shops in. So this was something that was really interesting, and how you can also get grocery service, and you can just buy the food and products from Panera, and not necessarily buy the actual sandwich. You can just buy the tomatoes, buy the bread, buy the avocado.
Yeah, this was really cool for a number of reasons. I mean, first and foremost, it was a program that was completely developed over a matter of a few weeks, and it was pushed out across all channels, both operationally at the cafe level and then within our digital properties to ensure a seamless ordering transition in order to allow for this to happen. I think what's also great about this is that Panera, we reflected on, okay, who are we as a brand, and how does our core values also then translate to genuinely doing good and helping out consumers in need. This was stemmed in a period of time where there was those long lines at the grocery stores. Getting access to fresh produce was genuinely a difficult challenge, and when toilet paper was sold out across the shelves. And so this was a great way for us to pivot as a brand to develop that intersection about like what is helpful for us as a business genuinely, but then two, how are we genuinely making an impact on consumers? And I know for me personally, I ordered this many a times throughout the early spring when it was difficult for me to even get some of these items within my local grocery markets.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty cool that you're able to, a lot of people with not wanting to make their trips into grocery stores as less frequent as possible.
Right.
During this, I think ordering either delivery or even a drive-through. If you're making dinner tonight for a family, you can go and get your supplies and get your food you need through a drive-through with minimal contact. And I think that's something that was probably extremely welcomed from the customer base.
Yeah.
So this next one.
Yeah, so this next one is honestly super cool. I mean, so again, while Panera was continuing to focus in on like different modes of operations and how our service, like our product core set can also help consumers. I mean, Panera Bread has always had a legacy around wellness and doing good. And this was a great way to see that come to life, where we launched the See a Plate, Fill a Plate challenge that allowed us to partner with Together Without Hunger in order to donate meals to those in need. And so we were able to, as a result of this program, challenge a bunch of people to post the image on the social media channels, as well as give that $3 donation. So it was around this concept of virality, and really just having our community at Panera and also inviting the outside community as well to do good. And it was great to see that we were extremely successful with this initiative. As some of you may have seen, we had Kim Kardashian, Martha Stewart, a lot of big names also taking a part of this program, which was awesome to see. And we were able to, end result, to deliver over 500,000 meals with Feeding America to help provide help to those food insecure families, which was great to see. Again, our brand pivot in a way of like, how can we do good from society? and continue that local outreach.
Yeah, I think brands like this really need to take advantage of this socially as well. I think because these are the stories that brands need to get out there more and more, and it's good to see Panera pushing their way out with that hashtag see a plate, fill a plate challenge.
Yep. Going into May, so we continue to review like our overall operation strategy, and one big item as well is trying to ensure safety is top of mind within the overall ordering process. So it's genuinely easy when it comes to some of the drive-through operations and delivery, but we were also looking to understand, okay, we only half of our cafes offer drive-through. There's plenty that don't. So what are we doing as a brand to adapt to this new environment where consumers they want to stay in their car? Like we're not as willing to go out, and so they walk into the locations. And so that's where Panera Curbside then came up. Again, internally, this was a huge digital initiative to stand up this type of program and also connect this within internal cafe operations to make it successful. So again, like as we walk through these, I think one thing that was awesome to see sort of like as someone internally is just understanding like how we as a brand are continuing to adapt so fast when our footprint is so large. There's a huge behemoth around getting everybody aligned, and Panera's been able to be remarkably nimble with its environment. And so Panera Curbside is also still a program that is set up today. Consumers can continue to order based off of their own comfort, and obviously based off of the cafes, in particular, different modems of operations as well, which still exist. But this was a great way for Panera to continue to innovate within the digital ordering ecosystem. Panera's, especially within the QSR space, continues to have a leadership position in leveraging mobile kiosk and other means of digital integrations to allow for safe ordering.
Absolutely. And here we go back to the Panera promotion around coffee, this time free for the summer. Why don't you explain this? Because I think people may want to learn more about this offer.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great offer. So coffee was, while we stepped away from some of that from the early spring, the interest for us as a brand to move forward in the subscription modelings and understand, okay, like how are we creating products that are disruptive to the overall industry? Coffee is continued to be a main support, and I would be remiss to not talk about what we're doing with coffee right now. We are no longer offering coffee free for the summer. However, if you sign up today for $8.99, you can also get your first month free. And it is still an initiative that we are supporting in a big way. And also one of our campaigns that we're running with our friends over at Gimbal. So if you have not signed up for free coffee yet and you are interested, please be exposed by an ad from our partners. And please do subscribe. I can guarantee you it'll be a great financial decision if you're looking to save a few bucks.
And great coffee
routines and great coffee. I mean, first and foremost, our coffee is also continuing to evolve from a product perspective, and it's delicious. So I highly recommend you guys give it a try. And if you like it, sign up.
I agree. So now we get to the exciting part for me, the bread bowls. This was actually a pretty funny video that you guys did with Michael Bolton. And you're adding the broccoli and cheddar mac and cheese into the bread bowl. But tell me a little bit more about what got into this and how you used can we call Michael Bolton an influencer? I guess we can, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely is an influencer. So tell me a little bit more about this ad you guys put together, the promotion.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about this and kind of going back to the free coffee for the summer is that as the brand continues to evolve in our market strategy and approaches, I mean, especially throughout the spring, our key focus was about ensuring comfort and understanding how we're reacting to sort of like the very changed landscape in terms of how companies can continue to support their communities. Moving forward, I mean, we are beginning now to pivot as a brand to understand and reflect again back on our product set and continuing to develop and innovate within new enticing menu offers that then just reinvigorates craveability in order to continue to drive attachment with our consumers. And so the broccoli cheddar mac and cheese is an item that is probably a long time coming, two classic Panera favorites finally reuniting as one. And so It was really fun to see our brand team continue to innovate on what can we do to really drive excitement about this promotion overall, and how do we continue to tap into culturally relevant influencers to help aid us in delivering the message in a fun and creative way.
Yes, and if anyone hasn't seen this video yet, please look it up on YouTube. It is a pretty funny video, and the broccoli cheddar mac and cheese bread bowl is something that you need to have on a warm day because that is glorious.
Yep, it is indulgent and delicious. And for those of you who want to continue to see music videos, our CEO tends to make a lot of them actually on LinkedIn as well. So if you give Naren a follow, you will be delighted with personal music renditions celebrating our latest promotions as well.
Yes, please be sure to do that. 2020 has certainly been. I mean, I feel like it's kind of a nauseating at this point when you hear about, oh, 2020 has been a horrible year. Yes, obviously that is the case. And I think looking back, 3, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we're going to look back on what we did during those times, both personally and professionally, and how we adjusted. And I think one of the things that's interesting to me is that I'm going to look back and be happy that I went through it. So number one, and that's kind of, it may strike some people as odd, but I'm happy I went through it in the way that I know that if it comes again during my lifetime, I will know how to react, and I'll be better prepared for it. And I think it's going to help for short term. I think brands are going to be better prepared because 2021, we may not be out of it just yet, right? So 2021 may very well be very similar to 2020, at least the first half through the winter. So I think knowing that, I think it's better preparing us and brands, specifically strategy wise, on how are we going to adapt going into January. And like I said, when we talked about having a plan, it's that famous Mike Tyson quote where you say everyone has a plan until you get hit in the face. And so how do brands adapt to when something does come up that hits you in the face, and like a pandemic did? So what are some of the things that Panera has done when they had a rollout of what they wanted to do with the coffee subscriptions? How curbside pickup was something that would have been an option, but you guys obviously adapted much faster to that. But what are some of the things that you wanted to roll out in 2020 in January, and how did you adjust as the country adjusted and evolved through the pandemic?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, I think to that point, Panera is now more equipped now than ever to transition strategy on a dime. I mean, to your point, we had longer sort of like media budgets and timelines that were put in place earlier on in the year that we began to quickly understand, okay, like where do we have flexibility? What are things that we can get out of? How do we shift things back to different quarters? But then even thinking just from a product perspective too, I mean, throughout this year, we had been testing new products and new options that were going to be released later in this year that were in the pipeline for years. And also keeping in mind that there's a bunch of sort of supply chain management that's a part of this too, from the food sourcing that we have in market. So there was a bunch of things that we had committed, and we had to pivot around. Okay, like how do we still take these items, but then translate it to potentially like a different menu opportunity that was then still pushed out in the fall timeframe. So like there was a lot of iterations around food innovation, around digital enhancements, around media planning that we now as a company I think have started to develop better operations to ensure that we're not being chaotic. And we definitely were a little chaotic in the beginning of this, to then transition that into being agile. So I think for whatever happens in these months and years ahead, we're always going to have a plan, as Mike Tyson said, but we're ready to get smashed in the face, fall down, and then get ourselves back up again and continue punching.
Yeah, I think that's a great strategy, and I don't think you're alone in the fact that you were a little chaotic. I think a lot of people were feeling the pain too. But it's the data collection that you guys are going to have, right? So all the data that you've been able to collect over the year and how users are engaging with your messaging, what are they resonating with curbside pickup, and coffee subscriptions and bread bowls and all the messages you guys are putting out is something that you could use for then reevaluating, recalibrating what you want to do for 2021, right? So I think this brings me to my next question. It's about curbside pickup, and it's a quote from your CEO, Nuran Shadi, regarding curbside. And this pandemic will continue to accelerate changes in consumer behavior that were already happening. This is the opportunity to innovate and reinvent and how you get engaged with your consumers, right? I think it's what we just talked about. Did you offer curbside pickup prior to the pandemic? Rapid pickup is something you did well before. How has it changed the way customers interact with Panera?
Yeah, we noticed a lot of these sort of adjustments in consumer behavior immediately in March. It was fascinating to see the way that we were generating sales and the way that consumers were ordering through us, and then how that transitioned into a largely an off-premise focus. So we've seen huge increases in drive-through, within mobile app, within delivery. And the curbside, to your point, like was a way for us to continue to evolve and adapt to the way that consumers want to engage with brands, especially within the QSR space. So to your point, we always had rapid pickup, and that still continues. Curbside pickup that's going to be an interesting one in terms of, I mean, we still are offering it. It's being offered in tandem with our rapid pickup services. I think we'll really see to continue, is this a modem that regardless of whether we're in this moment or out, if this is something that consumers will continue to leverage from a functionality perspective. And I think that's one thing that we as Panera are continuing to keep a very tight pulse on, is what are those different ways that consumers are looking to order with us, and how do we evolve our digital properties and our options for our consumers to allow for the most efficient and also just the most convenient way possible for them. So the future is very uncertain, as we all know, but we as a company are invested in continuing to evolve in that space, first and foremost.
Personally, I would like you guys to keep the curbside pickup. I find I have a Panera locally that I've hit up a few times, and it is super convenient. So if that shows a source of data you guys have and see that, I'm all about keeping it.
Great. I'll let him know.
All right. So our relationship, we've been working together for the past year or so, but Gimbal and Panera have had a relationship prior to us meeting each other. So Gimbal and Panera are partners in having Gimbal's location SDK integrate into the Panera app to help power the experiences such as curbside and a whole lot more. How has location aided in the app experience and impacted your marketing strategy at all?
Yeah, in a very big way. I mean, especially throughout the spring and summer, we had to react very quickly to a bunch of cafes either being open, closed, different sort of access opportunities, whether it's limited access, expanded access, and being able to tap into these location-enabled opportunities allows us to ensure that the consumer is being communicated the right information at the right time, and it's incorporated with everything that we do. And so location has continued to be extremely important in our position, where we don't have consistency. Some cafes you can go in, some you can't, and we need to be very clear with the consumer about what opportunities are enabled for them, so that we're not creating confusion in something that is quite complex. And so we'll see how it continues to evolve. I mean, location we also see as always being one of those things that we want to ensure that we're hitting relevant consumer bases. A lot of our targeting is based off of radiuses, whether based off of time for delivery or based off of just flat out distance from some of our other media reach and programs. But location is extremely important, and it's critical for us that we work with partners that are able to have that focus.
Yeah, and you're able to understand a little bit more about the consumer itself, right? The customer that we want to make sure that we're targeting people that live within a certain proximity that will actually go to a Panera. We don't want to hit someone who lives for 30 to 5 miles away from a Panera, where that person's probably not going to drive 30 miles to a Panera, but anyone within a 5-mile radius, something that you may want to hit, you may want to target. And then also understand how long that person is staying there. Is that person taking advantage of the curbside pickup opportunity and the rapid pickup? Or is that a person now with Panera's locations opening, is that person coming in? Is that person sitting there and actually dining? Or is that person coming in the future, where will that person be doing? And what kind of experience, what kind of customer that is, and then able to customize your messaging towards that person.
Yep, and our analytics team is keeping track on that, and we're continuing to understand how do we then, to your point, like develop our creative to really suit the needs of the customer. I mean, I think one of the challenges working at Panera is that the customers can react to us in so many different ways. We see each customer being very distinctly different. So one flat message is not necessarily always going to work for our diverse set of products, whether that be breakfast, lunch, dinner. whether people are mostly ordering delivery or, to your point, they're coming through dine-in or drive-through. There's so many different like notes of personalization that we can do, and we're quickly continuing to evolve to understand how do we enable more personalized messaging, both in our one-to-one communications, but then also within our core media activations as well.
Is there, as you're talking, I thought of another question. Is there a hierarchy or a value system that puts one higher or the other in regards to finding that person who goes in and dines at a Panera location as a person who goes through drive-through, or as a person who orders grocery now, and learning more and more about that user? Does that person, is that person learning the same person who may be a coffee subscriber? What kind of Panera loyalist? How deep are they? How deep will they go? Are they a frequent, someone who goes in there once, twice a week, as opposed to someone who may come in once a month and come in at dinner time and get a bread bowl or a sandwich? Is there a hierarchy to figuring out what that person is, and is there a target to? All right, we want to make sure that we see that more people are coming in there two times a week or doing a drive-through, and they also tend to be more likely to opt in for the grocery or more opt in for a coffee subscriber. And I know that could be data you may not have access to yet, but is that something of a focus for you guys in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is what's exciting about the My Panera loyalty program, is that being a part of the My Panera loyalty program, it allows us to understand your behavior as a consumer, but in only doing that in order to ensure that we're able to then give you the right rewards. Like we want to be able to entice and surprise and delight the consumers in the right way. And to your point, like those are all things that are really a core part of the My Panera program. So for any of you listeners, if you haven't downloaded the app or joined the My Panera program, highly recommend you do. If you do, you'll be surprised and delighted with enticing offers to suit exactly your needs, and in terms of coming back, and continuing to come back for a product.
Yeah, you clearly invested in the app too as a company, because it's very easy to
Mhm.
navigate and to online order. So it's something that I've dug into the last year or so and taken advantage of.
Yeah.
So but the next question that we carved out was the owning the entire guest experience is an understandable priority for any business. Panera had a long time model of in-house delivery services only. But last year, you decided to partner with third parties. These type of partnerships have blown up for obvious reasons. Can you talk about how this has changed the business and marketing strategy, and how has COVID re-emphasized this?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question. It's something that we're actually talking a lot about internally. We're excited to finally partner with like the DoorDash, the Grubhub, the Uber Eats,
Mm-hmm.
starting in August of last year, and we've really seen those arms take off. And I mean, and that's again like a way that we're adapting as a brand to understanding what is consumer behavior and how do we continue to be culturally relevant and fit into what the consumers are raising their hand and really asking for. We heard it loud and clear that consumers they build loyalty through ordering via some of these third-party delivery apps. And so by us now being integrated, it's allowed us to expand our overall consumer target, and really be attracting new users who necessarily weren't thinking of Panera for delivery and getting in front of them in the right way, in the way that they want to see it. One other actually very interesting element of this as well is that during this time frame, I'm also working on a project with 6 undergraduate students around delivery for Gen Z. And so it's been exciting over the last few months to work with this core group of tomorrow's leaders in terms of understanding how do we then also pivot our brand in delivery, especially for that Gen Z market. I think when we all think about Panera, our core consumer tends to be a little bit more on the older side, more family focused. And so it's exciting to be able to work with this core team, back from my own alma mater, to help understand how does Panera then become more relevant, especially in that Gen Z delivery space. And a lot of the feedback that we're hearing is continuing to have tighter partnerships with these delivery aggregators, since that's where the generation is moving from a delivery process. And so again, as Panera continues to understand how do we best fit into the current ecosystem, is something that we're definitely continuing to explore and grow.
Have you seen any of the Gen Z audience or people that in general use those third parties? Any one work particularly better than the other? Have you found more engagement or more revenue through a DoorDash or a Grubhub or a Seamless or Postmates?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of this is going to be dictated by total market share and regional footprint. So we don't necessarily see it consistent across everything, but there definitely are distinct differences. And so that again, like fuels sort of like our promotional strategies, like which partners that we're willing to do larger sort of like collaborations with. So that absolutely is a part of it.
So safety has obviously been a major concern for consumers, and many brands have opted to shift their messaging strategy from pushing purchases to honing in on more of an emotional connection. How has Panera created these types of experiences or shifted their messaging to connect with more with customers? And I think part of it is the Michael Bolton ad you guys had, but I wanted to hear if there's anything you guys want to draw upon.
Yeah, I mean, throughout the summer as well and spring, we focused a lot about how do we continue to communicate the message of like, here's everything that's happening in the cafes to ensure that consumers feel comfortable considering Panera as a dining option like during this time frame. And we even ran a few video assets around like delivery driver videos where we really showcased and like put the consumer in the car with the delivery drivers and kind of like heard them talk about their experiences and their journeys. I mean, I think one thing that's been again awesome working at Panera, something that I genuinely enjoy is hearing those moments from like a local cafe level when like a general manager like helped a consumer in need or a delivery driver went above and beyond within their overall delivery process or helped out sort of like a long time customer, since a lot of these customers who are coming to Panera on a regular basis, I mean, like they become like a part of that cafe. The associates always expect someone to come in at a certain time and have a certain favorite order. And so it's genuinely like heartwarming to hear these stories, and it's something that we promote some in our social channels. But these moments are actually talked about a lot internally, and within all of our major company like titles, there's an award that's then presented also to an associate who has gone above and beyond for a consumer in need. And so it's really great to see that Panera as a company genuinely cares about this type of moment on multiple levels, where it be corporate or just even within like the local levels at that cafes too. And we've done some to promote sort of the overall sort of heartwarming like feltness of it overall within our media. It definitely has been a larger focus of even some of our paid advertisements than what we maybe would have done historically in earlier times.
Yeah, I think more and more people are looking to personally be attracted to a brand, whether it be the messaging and especially emotionally connected too. So it makes sense you guys are really diving into that. As far as other marketing strategies during COVID and seeing how other brands react, have you seen any other marketing strategies from brands from afar that you've admired?
Yeah, I think one thing in particular that I have a sort of a personal like need to figure out is how does Panera hit a little bit harder within some of our social channels? I think when I look at like a like McDonald's or Wendy's or Dunkin' Donuts, I look at those brands and I'm pretty blown away by the way they've been able to sort of like handle, I think, a lot of these emerging technologies. So thinking about like TikTok, in for instance, in general, I think they've done a great job at being able to take advantage of that space, take advantage of the fact that, hey, we're all here at home and we're scrolling on TikTok for hours. And how do we take advantage of that in a really like native and organic way? I think we at Panera, I mean, we've taken a few steps into that. And actually for coffee, way back in the spring, like we collaborated with some of the TikTok influencers to create our own challenge. And so like we're continuing to explore these spaces. Do I think we've nailed it out of the park? No. Do I think that we will? Absolutely. We're just continuing to evolve to figure out how do we spark more personal connection and deeper involvement for Panera and really sort of inspire that craveability and really sort of like creating these discussions is something that we're definitely going to continue to figure out how we take advantage of those spaces moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's really important for just in general to keep a pulse on what your competitors are doing, right?
Yeah.
And that be able to look back and objectively see how well they're doing in certain spaces, or what decisions are they making to track that area or enter that platform or send a messaging this way, to not only to understand what they're doing, but also adjust me. You know what, I do like what they're doing here, or I wouldn't go this approach. And I think what we're doing is successful. So I think it's wise for you to do that. Before we get into, I know we have some questions that are coming up on the chat here. But what are some of the things that you're proud of from your team's perspective, and what you've been able to do and been able to accomplish?
Yeah, I think what I'm probably most proud of from the team is just our ability to transition quickly, to understand, okay, like how do we adapt to this environment from the paid media perspective? How do we create media plans that are more focused around what's right for the current moment, not just for the consumer, but then also being able to thoughtfully create media plans and be able to demonstrate performance and drive sales and conversions in a time where every dollar spent has critical eyes on it, and we need to be able to stand up and defend everything that we're spending and also make the case for wanting to spend more. And so I've been thrilled with the way that we've been able to develop deeper partnerships within our digital partners as well, in terms of like crafting stronger measurement stories, being able to place a focus on tying performance across web, app, in-store, to craft a tight story around total influence sales, around incrementality. We have evolved so fast over the last 6 months. And it's really just due to the strength of the partners that we work with, and really bringing everybody together around a core focus within media to test a lot of messages out there in a way that I've never seen Panera do before. And it's something that I think moving forward is a bit of what we're going to take with us in sort of the roads and months ahead.
I think that's something that you guys should definitely hold your chin up about. I think that's something it's not easy to do, and not everyone can say that. One other question before we get into this too is that, you know, I think if you had a new social media impact show where it's you and two other people sitting in a Panera having coffee, chit chatting, who would be the two people that you would like to be sitting with? If you could pick any two people in the world that you could sit with and have a coffee with and ask some Panera coffee and a bread bowl, who would they be?
Oh man, that's a good question, and I should have a better answer for this. Oh God, I'm gonna freeze on this one. I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna have to pass on that one. That's a great question though.
Okay, it could be a nice little social media experiment. What got me thinking was Jerry Seinfeld in Cars and him doing a conversation. If you guys have a Panera coffee and have a bread bowl and just talk with a couple people. So we're gonna do a little speed round here. I'm gonna say a word and you're just gonna give me your first reaction to it. So Michael Bolton.
Mac and cheese.
Curbside pickup.
Innovative.
Bread bowls.
Hearty.
2020.
Disruptive.
2021.
Advancement.
Gimbal.
Delightful.
Working from home.
Good.
And Utah.
Hiking.
Yes. So for those you don't know, RJ took advantage of the quarantine. He opened up and traveled. We talk about traveling across, being limited and not being able to leave the country so much with travel. But it's been given an opportunity for people to learn about your own country and travel across. And RJ mentioned how you traveled to Utah over the summer and did a lot of hiking there.
Yeah, and I mean, that was like one thing, again, I think to your point as well, is that it's been a hard year for a number of reasons, but at the end of the day too, like we just got to continue to figure out, okay, like where can we continue to find joy? Like, how do we continue to just sort of make the most of every day and make every day special, even if it's a little bit harder these days than it used to be? And I think to your point, it was an awesome opportunity just to take advantage of just the beautiful outdoors. I mean, I'm an avid hiker. I love going up in New Hampshire and hiking on the weekends, and going to see some of the national parks is always a pipe dream. And this was no better time to get out there and take advantage of the fact that I can work from some of these locations for an extended period of time and really just take advantage of that. So I was very happy that I was able to continue to sort of like still create fun and enjoyment despite everything else that's going on.
Yes, I was definitely jealous of your Instagram pictures that you put up over the summer. You look like you had a ball. So
Oh yeah, it was a good time.
is definitely on my bucket list. So I know we have a few more minutes left, but I'll ask a few questions that came in. Hey, RJ, with your digital and data background and your evolving role, are you working on a cross-media strategy deals with digital, video, and OTT?
Yep, that is correct. And I think one of my personal passion points is to understand, especially with OTT and connected TV, with that space continuing to evolve and our ability to understand the measurement a little bit tighter, is that how do we continue to balance our investment between linear and OLV and OTT? I think it's something that we are continuing to evolve our media mix in, and that's actually a big part of my personal roadmap going into next year, is how do we continue to adjust our strategies and understand, with different balances and weight between the two, what ultimately is driving performance for us for Panera.
All right. The next one we have here is, what will change forever in dining rooms for Panera because of this pandemic? Do you see more drive-throughs?
More drive-throughs being installed is a great question. Maybe. I do. I mean, I absolutely see our continued investment. Again, we've talked a lot about the digital ordering processes. Like, that is going to continue to be a key focus, and sort of minimizing friction for the consumer, and also just maximizing the consumer's ability to take advantage of the open space. So right now, a lot of our cafes, for actually a good chunk of them now, like, there is limited or expanded access inside. Tables are still very spaced apart. There's clear instructions everywhere about keeping your distance and just being mindful, and very like clear instructions for masking and everything else. So that'll continue to especially last not only throughout the rest of this year, but early into next. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to continue to be a focus on off-premise. We're talking a lot about how we continue to grow our delivery channels. And so there's a huge focus internally still looking into off-premise for next year.
What, and you may not know this right off the bat, but a rough number, but what percentage of Panera locations have an option for a drive-through currently?
Yeah, so out of the 2,200 locations, about 850 currently have drive-throughs, and they're more. Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I have been looking at this location data for a while. I mean, and it's been a key part of our marketing strategies, is ensuring that, like, our messaging, if we're going to include drive-through in our creative, that we're serving it in relevant markets where those cafes are available. So it's definitely been a large part of our strategy, especially when the operational updates were so critical.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if that's something that the franchisees, or the ones who do not have it, are looking to add that to their repertoire and their offering.
I mean, a part of it's difficult too, since the real estate, some of them are leases, some of them are owned, some of them are in urban environments where a drive-through is just not realistic. So again, it's going to be adapting to those cafe locations. Panera is continuing to look at what cafes of the future will look like and how our floor plan will continue to evolve and grow. And so there's some absolutely exciting things on the way, looking forward into the next few years as we continue to evolve even our own in-cafe experiences.
All right, cool. Next question we have from the group. Panera has done a great job pivoting because of COVID in the restaurant and grocery space. Do you see these changes staying long term?
So some of them will stay, some of them will not. So Panera Grocery is no longer supported across many of our cafes, just simply due to the fact, I think, that the service is no longer necessarily as needed, and some of that's been sunsetted. So again, I think things will continue to pivot and grow. And so nothing is necessarily always going to stay. I think we will continue as a brand to try to keep our pulse on what is necessary for the consumers, and how do we then continue to develop an offering that truly fits that.
And the next one we have, this is kind of a two-part, is did you see an increase in app downloads, and have you used location data for conquesting purposes?
I mean, yes and yes. So location data for conquest purposes is something that has been an arm of our audience strategies, especially tapping into third-party data signals, and partners such as Gimbal that are able to target based off some of that conquested behavior, as well as we craft who are we trying to target from a prospective perspective. In terms of mobile app downloads, we have seen a huge spike within the app download rates, and then in particular, even customers who had the app pre and post, a lot more app ordering. So it continues to be a key part of our business, and we're starting to actually invest a bit more in terms of getting the consumers to download the app, since we know it's been such a successful part of our ability to regain some of that revenue and traction from our customers.
Yeah, and I think a large part of what brands who have an app and want to get an app download campaign going, or even increase the amounts of downloads, it's also important to not only once they download it, to actually see engagement with it, right? Because a lot of times people may download an app because they may see an ad and get forced to for that conversion, but then forget about they have because they have 100 other apps on their phone. And it's getting that person to not only download an app, but then also engage with it and see the success, be able to comfortable with that app, and then be able to become more of a norm of how to use it and to increase your engagement with it and see a more attribution for it.
Yeah, totally agreed. I mean, I think that's a bit of where we've taken our app download strategies as well. It's not just based off of a cost per install, but we're looking in terms of, okay, how do we developing that deeper engagement to ensure that we're creating that consumer connection? So whether we're seeing them download and sign up for My Panera or make an order, we're really focusing our creative messaging and everything else to be specifically tied in around how do we leverage this as a point to increase loyalty and attachment. And then it's leveraging one-to-one strategies to continue to engage in those consumers.
Mm-hmm. Have you found a way to promote your app download and stand apart from your competition?
That's a great question. I would like to say yes, since a bit of the reason of our app download strategy is really looking into the core competencies of the My Panera program. That's really a big part of what sets us apart from a lot of the other QSR space, is that we genuinely have like a strong promotion around My Panera, and there's a huge legacy around the whole surprise and delight and rewards and everything else that we continue to really put a lot of emphasis on. And then secondarily, we're focusing in on our star products and really enticing and promoting out the craveability of our product set with an app download attachment as well. So I think with like those two things, we're really trying to differentiate ourselves within the reasons why the consumer should be downloading and really interacting with us.
Yeah, agreed. So it looks like we got one more minute left. We've answered all the questions from the chat, so I'm happy about that. There was no one left upset at us for not addressing it. One real quick one I could ask you is that two, if you have those two people still for the coffee.
Oh yeah.
But you can get back to me later. But where do the great ideas come from your organization? Or you guys are all in a conference room, you guys are all brainstorming. Is it more of a collective approach? Or is it more of a top-down approach? Where do the great ideas? Because you guys have been able to come up with some nimble ideas to adjust to this. And where do they come from?
Great ideas come from anywhere. And it's really just about pushing your own ideas and your solutions to ensure that your voice is heard through different levels of the organization. To your point, getting that executive senior leadership buy-in always helps in pushing something through. But yeah, a good idea can come from any of our agency partners, internal, associates at the cafe level. There's a large amount of overall opportunity to ensure that anyone within the Panera family is heard, since a good idea can come from anywhere, and it would behoove us to close our ears down on that. Yeah,
no, I agree. I think getting back to the two people in a coffee, I think it'd be me, you, and Martha Stewart would be perfectly fine by me.
Oh yeah, that sounds delightful. I'm in for that coffee chat.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you, RJ, for it looks like it's 1:05 now. Thank you, RJ, for spending some time with us, answering all the different questions.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Thanks so much for joining us today, RJ and Steven. Got lots of great takeaways from what you guys said. First off, great job traveling across the country to Utah. That's actually next on my list. I'm in Colorado right now. I packed up my place in New York City, and yeah, I'm just on the road now. And I actually did Mount Washington over the summer, so I'm sure you've done that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty epic. But I love what you guys were talking about. Like what you said, Steven. Panera is like just such a clean, healthy QSR. It's great, like now that I'm on the road so much, to have that option. And I love what you guys are doing, the coffee subscription. Like Scott Galloway is always talking about rundles, and like just having that recurring revenue is just a really smart way to go about it. Also love that you donated 500K meals to all these food insecure families. I don't know if you get a chance to tune into next session, but Wholesome Wave does a lot with that. So that's like a great way to like form a emotional connection with your consumers. So Scott Nelson's like really lucky to have you on his team. Yeah. So, but thank you. This was a really great, fun, inspiring conversation to start to kick off this day.
You are too kind, Pearl. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. We'll hope to have you guys back again soon.
Sounds good.
All right, so let's continue on. Next up, we have Michelle Nishan of Wholesome Wave and Jim Spalding from PepsiCo. Michelle is a 4-time James Beard award-winning chef with over 35 years of leadership advocating for a more healthful, sustainable food system. He is a co-founder and chairman of Wholesome Wave and the co-founder of the James Beard Foundation's Chefs Action Network. Jim is the senior director of marketing at PepsiCo, leading Tropicana, Naked, and Kavita brands. He has over 18 years of experience in CPG, brand building, platform creation, and P&L ownership. And this session will be moderated by Mark Fleisch. He's the SVP of Head of Partnerships at Ground Truth. Hi, guys. Hi, Michelle.
Hey, Pearl, how are you?
Good to see you always.
Good to see you.
I'm really excited for the brand innovators community to hear all about your partnership with PepsiCo. You guys, I mean, everything you do at Wholesome Wave holds near and dear to my heart, and I thank you for putting so much time into helping the world. We need more of that these days. But looks like you guys are ready. I'll let you guys take the stage. I'll pass the mic off to Mark, and I'll be back while you guys are wrapping.
Thank you very much, Pearl, and lovely introduction to Michelle and Jim. But why don't we just start by, Michelle, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Wholesome Wave and what you do, and then Jim, I'll pass it off to you to talk about how you're working with Michelle.
Terrific, and thanks a million, Mark. My original career was as a chef for over 35 years, lucky enough to win a few Beard Awards. But I was doing a cuisine of well-being. 2 of my children live with type 1 diabetes. And I had an income, I had the knowledge, everything I needed to do with the food strategy for my family to give them their best long-term outcome. Changed the way I cooked in my restaurants, but could really only do that because folks that could afford the $30 entree could have a cuisine of well-being at Heartbeat or at Dressing Room. So we really endeavored to try to figure out a way to help the millions of Americans that struggle with serious food insecurity put healthier food on their table. So we started back in 2007 by raising private money to double SNAP benefits or food stamps when spent on fruits and vegetables at farmers markets, participating retailers, and we're successful using the outcomes of that activity to legislate in the 2014 Farm Bill and now the 2018 Farm Bill, the permanent Gus Schumacher Nutrition Incentive Program to double food stamps when spent on fruits and vegetables, named after my late co-founder, Gus Schumacher. So we raised private money to prove how public money could be spent maybe more effectively for a healthier outcome. And then we share that knowledge with lawmakers to try to get the systems changed so it can be a part of normal everyday life for every American, regardless of their income.
Wonderful, and obviously great work that you're doing and really benefiting a lot of people and keeping them healthy, which is important. So Jim, why don't you tell us a little bit about your role at PepsiCo and what you're doing in partnership with Wholesome Wave with Naked?
For sure. First of all, I'm always humbled to be on stage with Michelle, given what he has accomplished and what his team is doing. It's all sincerity. I very much enjoy working at PepsiCo, but you guys are really doing the hard work out there, Michelle. So hats off to you and your team. So what I do at PepsiCo is I lead the basically all the marketing, comms, media, commercialization across the key brands that was noted earlier. So Tropicana, Naked, and Kavita. So the juice side of the portfolio, which is run out of the Chicago office. The corporate headquarters being, of course, out of New York, which the rest of the beverages sit in, the waters and the CSDs. And so my job is to make products and deliver products to consumers in a way that that drives brand love, drives equity, drives velocities, using our marketing words, right? In a way that improves the brand, but also delights consumers. I mean, when you look at what PepsiCo does, we have products, all the way from snacks to CSDs to waters to juices. But no matter what we're here to do is really delight consumers every day and making sure we're bringing them products that are what they are looking for. And I love working on the juice side because not that I don't love the other sides of PepsiCo, but I really love the nutrition side. I've worked on the Quaker side now for many years, and now the Tropicana, Naked, Kavita side. And I just love talking to consumers and bringing consumers, nutritious products as much as we possibly can, right? Because we're in the business of manufacturing, and we need a shelf life. So there are some limitations there, but we do the best we can within the guardrails. But from a Naked standpoint specifically, I think why the marriage between us and Michelle's team, Wholesome Wave, is so great is because it was such an easy fit. And we started around 8+ years ago. I wasn't on the brand at the time, but the marriage that was created at that time was really a special one. And I think it was pretty effortless, to be honest. And the reason it was so effortless is because we had a real shared belief system. We had a real a shared partnership in what we were trying to do in the world. And so when we talk within our walls, we talk about kind of the fruit and veg democratization is kind of what we're going after. And how do we bring to those food deserts in the way that we can? And one of our greatest tools, as we think of kind of our societal role, as we talk about internally, one of our greatest tools that we have is money, right? And we're a big company, we're a big brand. And so as we try to really take that societal role to the next level, it's partnering with folks like Michelle and his team to really take it to the street in a good way and leverage our dollars to go the next level that we just can't as PepsiCo.
That's fantastic. So, Michelle, I'd love to hear you talk about, why Naked is such a great partner for you, and how you're partnering with the brand, and how Naked is really helping you drive brand love, for your mission as well as for the Naked brand.
Yeah, well, yeah, thanks, Mark. And it's amazing because Jim really nailed it. The aligned values, don't just exist in how we view society at large and how we want to make sure that everybody, regardless of income, has the right and the ability to choose the fruits and vegetables they need to keep their family well. It's functional, right? Fruits and vegetables. And I think at the time, Jim, when we started the relationship, one of the facts about Naked Juice that they thought was a pretty neat fit was how it takes about a pound of fruit or vegetable to make a Naked Juice. And every dollar raised to Wholesome Wave at the time, because that was the average price per pound of a fruit or a vegetable, which provides about 6 to 8 servings of fruits and vegetables, depending on which vegetable you are. It's kind of like you guys provide a pound of fruits and vegetables, and we were providing a pound. So it was almost like too good to be true, right? So it was really easy. But I think the most critical thing about Naked that sets them apart from almost any other consumer brand that we work with is just their deep desire to make it easier for us to do our job. So yes, to Jim's point, they bring money, but they also bring their agency heft. They bring the talent of their team. We've done all kinds of amazing marketing campaigns, with celebrities, take a selfie with a fruit and vegetable and hashtag drink good, do good. And 10 pounds worth of fruits and vegetables goes to Wholesome Wave. Fill your shopping cart with celebrities like, John Legend and Misty Copeland. And also just advising us on how we think about the way we talk about our work to the rest of the world to make it as simple and straightforward as possible so that we can really encourage other people to support us. So, it's one thing to say, we're really making a lot of money off of specific consumer sectors, and we need to give back and do good and prove that, we care about society. Let's write a check to this cause. These guys found a cause that's mission aligned, business aligned, operationally aligned, spiritually aligned. It just, all of the alignments were there, and they put their whole selves behind it. So I think when you think about authenticity and brand authenticity, any type of authenticity, spiritual or personal authenticity, you got to put your whole self behind it if you want your audience to feel that they're getting the real deal. And it was easy from minute one with Naked Juice.
Yeah, we talked a lot about authenticity being such a important part of the partnership and showing up well to the consumer. I'm curious, this is actually a surprise question I didn't prep you with, but who approached who in this partnership? Did Naked approach Wholesome Wave, or was it the other way around?
Naked approached Wholesome Wave. The funny thing is, way back when Naked Juice was, it's so funny, we talked about this last week, Jim, when Naked was the guy peddling smoothies on the beach. They went to market, and Bobby Kennedy and his wife Caroline Kennedy became spokespeople for the juice because they were huge fans of, at the time, vegan or plant-based, and making sure that people had access to it. So as a celebrity chef, I was asked to do kind of like a tasting in Windows of the World in like 1995 or something. So then we get this call 2010 or 2011 from somebody from Naked Juice saying, we think, we've been following you guys. We think, we really want to put our shoulder behind doing good. And of every one that we've searched, you guys seem to make the most sense for us. I'm like, I love your product. I'm very familiar with your product because from that tasting, I became a fan, of the brand and the product in the first place. But they reached out to us, and that year it was kind of like, let's cut our teeth. They gave us a grant for $150,000, and we had a blast. And it just kept growing and growing and growing year over year over year. And the enthusiasm of the Naked team for the work that we did, and frankly, yeah, their genuine interest in the entire team. Jim keeps saying Michel and his team, Michel and his team. His team, their team, always wanted to know everybody on our team, and they wanted to know everything about them. Not what is your role at Wholesome Wave, and how are you going to interact with us on this campaign? What keeps you up at night? What jazzes you to get you up in the morning? What are the things that really make you joyful and happy and stuff like that? It's always been a friendship. So, but they came to us first.
That's great. And Jim, I'm going to turn it to you and pivot a little bit back to, Naked is such a strong brand with such a great identity that sort of already was rooted in health and nutrition, and from the early days of its founder peddling it on the beaches of California. But talk to us about how you really establish that identity of the brand, the DNA of the brand, and what the brand stands for, and maybe give some advice to some of the other marketers that might be on the call who are looking to find partnerships that fit with their brand. But how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so like a lot of people probably on this call, I've worked on several brands across several companies, and this is probably one of the few of the handful I've worked on that really was rooted in a true, authentic DNA. So Jimmy Rosenberg is one of the gentlemen who's the co-founder, was on the beaches of Santa Monica in the early '80s, and it's easy when you have someone who is the founder. And you kind of really know what their makeup was, what their thoughts were, what their general positioning was. And so I think what we have done, PepsiCo has done since early 2000s when we purchased it, is really just kind of carry it forward. We are stewards of the brand. We are not the owners, and we are not the inceptors of. And so by way of being stewards of the brand, we need to make sure that we, carefully carry it for the few years that each of us are kind of on it. And so with that, we take that very seriously. And we take these partnerships like Wholesome Wave, et cetera, very serious. And so we are constantly ensuring that no matter what we are doing, from innovation, from campaigns, et cetera, that we are carrying forward kind of the DNA of the inception of this brand. And so I think my advice to folks is if you're lucky enough to work on a brand that it was so steeped in, doing good, then don't screw it up. Make sure you listen to the founders, the original founders, whether they're still around or not, or still part of the business or not, kind of listen to their spirit, if you will, and make sure you carry it forward in the right ways. And if you're going to tweak it or change it, make sure it's always for better. I think for those that don't have it, that's okay too. And I've worked on those brands. I think it's all about taking the appropriate step back, really to define your positioning, kind of your belief system, and then kind of what I used that language earlier, but like your societal role. So what do you want to believe? What do you want to be? And it is really around this kind of shared belief, shared value. So who is your consumer base, or who are you going after in the future as maybe a category evolves? And make sure that you're not trying to just be a poser, if I can use that word, but you're trying to be authentic to who you think the brand is, but then also find that shared belief system. So the real counsel I would give is when you do it with a full heart, full throat, and stick with it. Because for the first couple of years, no matter who you're going after, no matter what you're saying, there's going to be a little skepticism, like, this is new for you guys. Like, you kind of just made this up, like, okay, whatever. And so it's really sticking with it and talking to your consumers, talking to the right constituents, and evolving. And by year 2, 3, you're not talking at consumers anymore, you're talking with them. And by 4 or 5, hopefully you've converted them in the right way. And now they're advocates and they're talking for you. You still have that dialogue with them, but now they're talking on your behalf. So it is an evolution over time that you need to be willing to stick with from a leadership standpoint, from a budget standpoint, and from kind of a language go-to-market standpoint.
Thank you for that counsel. Yeah, it really sounds like, the first work is really establishing what is your DNA and what do you value, and really everything kind of ties back to that. And the reason I love this partnership so much is because of that shared value. I'd love for you both to just kind of talk about the social good and the societal role that this partnership plays, because I just think it's so valuable what you're doing for society and for an underserved community within our society, and making sure that they can have healthy foods, and especially as it relates to the pandemic. And I know, Michelle, you have done a lot of research in terms of pre-existing conditions and how fruits and vegetables and a healthy diet can really help defend people. And if there's anything that you're doing as a result of communicating that to consumers, would love to hear about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think first of all, when we look at what we do at Wholesome Wave, we've always believed that low income really strips people of rights. And one of the rights that it strips people of is the right to choose. And, early on, when I had changed the way I cooked in my restaurants, because I soon learned from, raising Chris and Ethan and our family, we changed our food strategy at home. I was feeding people things I wouldn't feed my family. So I changed. I did a 180 in my career, and thankfully it worked out. Got 3 stars in the New York Times and 0 stars by the New York Post, got accused of being the food police. So we were controversial and popular, but it led to me being invited to these think tanks with the Harvard School for Public Health, because in 1997, I was an anomaly, a chef with a 3-star review that cooks healthy food that isn't health food, right? So it's there that I learned about these social determinants. And I felt really depressed when I learned about the family of 4 that relies on food stamps, that when they run out of food stamps in the middle of the month, they have $2 for dinner for all 4 people. So a head of broccoli is $2. That's cheap. You get a lot of broccoli for $2, but is that the only thing you're going to put in front of your family? So broccoli never makes it to the table. And what was interesting is I just floundered and felt guilty, feeling good about, making well-being food for people who could afford the $30 entree. And there was no business plan for that family. So I started volunteering in food banks, food pantries, trying to figure out who was really doing great work that I could lend myself to, my brand to, my passion to. And what I saw were people with very, very sullen faces getting boxes of things they didn't choose, and waiting in line, feeling like they're getting a handout. And being a market-based guy, I'm kind of like, this ain't working. And there's also this energy at the time, there was a lot of people in the public health community that believed food stamps should be restricted to only healthy food choices, that this would reduce the obesity, the type 2 diabetes, the high blood sugar, the hypertension, the heart disease that was more prevalent in these communities of poverty. And the assumption was these people that are struggling with poverty must be undereducated and just don't know how to make a healthy food choice. And that really rubbed me the wrong way. So that's when Gus Schumacher, my late co-founder, and I started hobby working together and said, what if we raised private money and just offered it to people and doubled their food stamps if they bought fruits and vegetables? We can either prove that they don't want, don't care, don't know about fruits and vegetables. It's their choice. Either they take the 2-for-1 fruit and vegetable sale or not, or we prove that, some people struggling with poverty might really dig it. What we found overwhelmingly is that close to 90% of anybody that we've ever put the program in front of enthusiastically goes after the fruits and vegetables. From a policy support and an advocacy perspective, one of the most important and easy things to measure the outcomes of is a transaction. So, rather than give somebody from the Caribbean broccoli when they really like breadfruit or callaloo, we give them money that can only be spent on fruits and vegetables, and they can find a retailer that sells breadfruit and callaloo and buy the produce that they know their family needs. So it evaporates the knowledge barrier. It evaporates the culturally appropriateness barrier that's often found in the philanthropic community when they try to deal with food and nutrition insecurity. It's the transaction, and that's why we've been so successful. And all along the way, another point I wanted to make to kind of like a previous question when Jim was giving exceptional advice to other brands about authenticity, how to stick with it, what your strategy and what the framework and the scaffolding should look like behind that. Another thing that's really rare with Naked and only a couple of our other supporters is they bring us the support and they say, how will you tell us how the money will be put to its best use? So many times, especially with corporate brands, they have their own vision about how they would like their money to work, and they end up being the tail that wags the organization's dog, causing organizations to change the way they work in the field. And so many of these organizations are basically doing the MacGyver. They're rubbing a couple of pennies together, duct tape, paperclip, and toothpicks, to get the work done in the field. And to have a partner like Naked come along and say, here's the money, here's our team, here's our talent. Tell us how you want it put to work. That's freaking amazing. When we look at these diet-related diseases that Wholesome Wave programs were really designed to help alleviate, but to put that power in the hands of the decision maker in a family. Right now with COVID-19, the CDC, before the administration kind of shut their work down, did a study in March of 17 states of who was suffering from the highest hospitalization and death rates from COVID. And 89.3% of people hospitalized by COVID had one of 5 or a combination, what they call comorbidities or pre-existing conditions: type 2 diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, heart disease, or asthma. 4 of the 5 are diet related. So when we look at the type of support that Naked gives us, we immediately went into Los Angeles and started really deploying some new payment technologies. And Jim's like, how can we help? I'm like, let us use your money in LA. We've got this app that delivers food to people's home. They can use the donor dollars, order their fruits and vegetables, and not have to expose themselves to COVID. They're like, do it. No questions asked. That is rare. That is so rare. My advice to anybody who's watching that's stewarding a brand and considering how to really put the scaffolding behind your authenticity, make sure you choose your partner well, like Naked did with us, and please don't be the tail that wags their dog. If you've done the diligence and you know that they're effective, please don't change the way that they work.
That is really, really good advice. And questions are starting to pour in. But there's one thing that you said, which I think is, I'm going to ask Jim a follow-up question on, and how Wholesome Wave has really been able to grow and prove really to the people that are funding your program that it's working, is that transactional data. And obviously, as marketers, the conversion and the transaction is the ultimate goal in terms of proving, efficacy and the ROI behind these programs. And so, Jim, I was just wondering, how do you, I mean, obviously, I think Naked is partnering with these brands for reasons beyond just ROI, obviously, but are you looking at how the partnership drives ROI for your brand, and how do you think about that?
Yeah, I'll be very blunt. The answer is no. And it's very unique. I'll be very, very candid, Mark. It's very unique, this partnership, again, that was prior to my time. But the folks who put it together, from our side at least, and have carried it forward, have never pushed on me from a leadership standpoint down to say, let's get big headlines, talking about the ROI, talking about conversion. Can we get our name in front of them? And Michelle, please push back on some of the history here, because that I don't have. But it really has not been an ROI driver. It has been this is part of our DNA, and this is what the right thing to do for us. And we believe it so much that we want to find a partner that can do it better than we can. And so again, when that partnership was bonded and now we carried it forward, it was much more about, how do we do the right thing? How do we do it at scale? I will say I want to add one other thing that I had in speaking to, kind of how do you find the right partners? How do you do partnerships, et cetera? I think one other thing that we did when we talked to Michelle about this most recent LA pilot is you got to have a story for your internal constituents. Right. And so one of the things, it's in order to get the money, it's not just, big companies don't just hand it out. So one of the things we did push Michelle on was, how do we do something like, we'll give you guys pretty much free reign, but how can we, something you're not doing today, how can we take it to the next level? And I think that's what's been great about this partnership over the years is, what can't you do because you don't have the money? Not we want to do it, but what can't you do? And then we'll give you as much money as we can towards that. And how can we help really accelerate what you guys are trying to accomplish? So sorry, I answered kind of my own question or put my own thing out there, but also it really has been not an ROI driver. And I think if you get the ROI, that's great. But I think first and foremost in these types of partnerships, it needs to be more of two puzzle pieces coming together versus a bolt-on in hopes that it's going to accelerate your brand and drive awareness.
Yeah, 100%. We're talking about brand love, and love is a really hard thing to measure, right? And then in addition to that, I think what you said earlier in terms of this, you really have to take a long-term approach to these partnerships in terms of year 1, year 2, 3, 4, 5, and stick with it. So, and happy to hear that, you've continued on throughout the partnership and that the leadership has been supportive, sort of even without that expectation. But clearly you're not only showing a lot of love to consumers, I'm sure that's resonating in love with the Naked brand as well. So we have about 10 minutes left, and I'm going to just take some questions from the audience. So these are all curveballs, so be prepared. Question number 1 is, are you using email in your marketing strategy? And is that rising or falling if you are?
Sorry, is that for
I guess it's for you or Michelle. Michelle, I don't know if you're leveraging email to get the word out, but if either of you are leveraging email in your marketing strategy, and how are you using that, and are you using it more or less?
I'll just answer briefly. We use everything we can. We do email, snail mail. We're just starting to really kind of build our digital presence, through Instagram and Facebook. The actual marketing communications piece is one of the hardest things to raise money for. But we're making progress there. We have to use all of it because cohorts of potential supporters have preferred ways of communicating. So it's not, when you're a nonprofit organization, you do it all. You do keep track because you don't want to keep sending somebody an email who doesn't like getting emails. But you hit everybody with everyone, and you have to keep an eye on the way people prefer so that you can bucket them into the right cohorts and make sure that you're not over touching. But that's as technical as I can get.
Yeah.
Yeah, from our side, not dissimilar, just maybe at a larger scale, but not dissimilar. And we use everything that we can that consumers positively respond to, and we see the lifts on the brand, et cetera. So when we do promotions, we'll capture information if consumers are willing to share, and we'll leverage that to send them, different opportunities, drive awareness, et cetera, for the brand. The bulk of our dollars are being spent in digital social. And TV. We're on TV for the first time last year, so this is our second year of being on TV. Prior to that, we've always been more of kind of the grassroots, or guerrilla marketing is the old phrase, much more so. So going to fairs and going to festivals and bringing our trucks along and sampling. It's always been for us up until 2 years ago, and it's still a part of it. But up until 2 years ago, it was the only thing, almost, some digital social. But really, how do we just get the product into consumers' mouths, because it was telling its own story from first to last sip.
Well, that's actually an interesting follow-up. I've personally worked with some brands that also relied heavily on sampling, and now are really having to rethink that strategy within the pandemic in terms of, you can't do in-store samples now and things like that. So how are you thinking about getting samples out to consumers and the product in their in-mouth in the sort of new, world that we're living in?
Yeah, I'd say there's three things that come to mind that we're working on. One is there's a lot of third parties out there that can do kind of digital sampling, if you will. So kind of basically a over dramatized coupon or something like that. Mm-hmm. Two is we're looking at shifting the mix of the spending. So going after things that give like point values like Ibotta and things like that is really been taking off quite a bit. And then also looking at, sorry, I had to pause. Also looking at different sizes. So how do we think about maybe instead of the 15.2, for instance, like, do you look for smaller sizes so it can be easier to give away for free, right? To giving a 15.2 or a 64 ounce away for free is costly on a per unit basis. And so is there a way that we could maybe think of like our 10 ounce, for instance, that we already have out there in our multi-packs, and use that as a sampling? And then there's some folks that are doing some pretty interesting things. We'll see if it takes off or not, but there's several companies we're looking at that do, like, they roll a truck up to your local grocery store and everyone's masked and donned with whatever and they, hermetically seal a little package and hand it to you, kind of thing. So there's all sorts of things that are going on, similar to the folks in store. There's a lot of, kind of pre-packaging or ways that they're trying to think of to give people comfort, right? That's kind of what it's all about. Give people comfort on something that's already open. And so I think that part is still a little TBD on how consumers are going to feel. But the rest is just more from a digital standpoint. How can we make things available and make it as easy as possible for consumers?
Thank you. Here's an interesting one, and this is going back to brand love and the DNA. What can heritage brands learn from newer digital first brands when it comes to authenticity and marketing to a younger Gen Z audience? And I know Pepsi has a lot of heritage brands.
Yeah, no shortage of heritage brands. I work on Tropicana as well, over 72 years. So I think what they can learn is, a little bit of what got you here is not going to get you there, right? Kind of the old adage. And that is some of these heritage brands we have are the cohorts that we are servicing and reaching out to are, constantly aging, right? It's just, that's the way of the world. And so how do we continue to talk to directly the younger generation, the up and coming moms, dads, or we totally like points of market entry is the way we talk about it. So you have a life shift of some sort. You are getting your first apartment, you're getting married, you're coming out of college, etc. And those are the folks that we need to make sure that we continue to keep our hand on the pulse of, because the up and coming brands, for the most part, are going directly after those millennials, Gen Zs, and beyond. And so if you don't listen to them and try and tweak a little bit, you're going to be left behind. Now, on the flip side, it's difficult for a brand like Naked or Tropicana or some of the bigger brands that we have to all of a sudden just be like, hey guys, we're cool, just so you know, like you're kind of you're the old guy coming to the young kid party, and everyone's kind of looking at you like, I'm not really believing it. So I think you need to be authentic. You need to continue to refresh, kind of continue to knock the dust off and find ways to be relevant, but continue to stick to kind of who you are and being okay with, you're not going to be the fad brand. You're not going to have some of the cool tricks that some of the new brands do. And that's okay. But you have your role and you have your group of folks that you continue to drive with.
And if I may, Mark, I just, because we actually market, and are interested in a lot of the same cohorts. These kids do their research, man. So you can't surface level the thing. You can't say, what are like the top 8 talking points and brand points? And, let's find out, what real hot interest points are, and let's aim our language at that. You got to freaking do it. You have to take a look at your company values, and nothing wrong with having a grandbaby come along and make a grandpa feel like he's got to start working out and changing some things about his lifestyle so he can lift the baby up over his head and have some fun. You got to work on it. You got to work on it because these kids do their research.
That's a great point, Michelle. Thank you for bringing it up. Is we internally we talk about the double click, right? You can't just be a veneer. Consumers these days, especially young consumers, they want you to have a societal role. They want you to have values that align with theirs beyond just selling me a product. And if they can double and triple click and you pass the sniff test, all right, you get to the next stage. Not an automatic in, but you get to the next stage, right? And then you got to continue to prove yourself along the way.
For sure. All right, one more question, and then I think we'll wrap. But I think this is a good question for both of you, and really for everybody. But how are you keeping your team members engaged in this work from home environment, this remote working world? And how are you, especially you, Michelle, who you're working, with other local markets and things like that? How are you keeping the team members engaged?
Well, what's amazing is the mission and the work is what keeps everybody engaged. It is so on point for where we're at. I mean, you look at, food pantries are overwhelmed, and right now governmental decisions are throwing food at food pantries, which is making it even more difficult for them to serve the people that they already have to serve. When we have the ability to raise some funding and put it in the hands of somebody, and they can choose, get the healthy food that they need, in many cases, get it delivered to their home. It's really timely, so this technology play for us, and there are a number of technologies that we're deploying from the payment tech side that give people the ability to get food and get it delivered to their home. This is the time to do it because of the pandemic environment, but never before has there been just greater cause because of the hospitalization and the death rates of people who need to eat better but can't afford to, So that really keeps everybody together. I mean, we work all over the country. We have a network of hundreds of community-based organizations that actually deploy a lot of our work on the ground, that we coordinate, train, deploy, fund. They're the ones who are dealing with poverty in the place that they call home and have that trust with the community member. Those relationships were done, yes, in person, but also done over the phone. And the whole Zoom thing for all of us, it drives us nuts because it's constant engagement after engagement. But people can still tell that you genuinely care about them when you're engaging with them on a screen. And, our work is more important now than ever. Everybody knows that. And if anything, because we're an empathetic bunch to start with, the amount of checking in that everybody does to make sure that everybody's okay and that their kids are okay and stuff has like amplified. It's everybody's become everybody's best friend and mother and father and all that jazz. So it's just good. I think if you're an organization that's founded on solid core values, something like this only brings everybody closer together. Everybody will find a way to get over any of the barriers that something like this causes if you're all aligned with a really awesome culture.
Yeah, that was fantastic. I was writing down a couple of what my notes were going to be. Michelle, I think you hit 2 of the 4 of them pretty solidly. So I'll just add 2. I will not try and outdo for sure, because that was fantastic. I think the 4 areas were flexibility, like what do you need to do, when do you need to get it done, because it's not only the world around us, but and the Zoom, which is tiring, as Zoom fatigue, as people talk about. But so many people are teaching their kids from home when they're not teachers and they don't have the time to barely do their own work, let alone teach their kids. So I think flexibility, empathy was definitely one I wrote down, and you nailed that, Michelle. I think from your team for sure. Exemplifies that. I think over communicate, which you nailed as well. And then the last one I had was just new thinking. It's you can be as empathetic and flexible, but unless you have ideas, over the first couple months, it was like, go take a walk, carve out some time for you. And then after, for us, at least my team, month 3 and 4, it was like, it's not working. Like, I need more. I need something else. Like, I need an unlock, basically. And so I think it was, we were getting kind of mini quick qualitatives together. Pearl, is that a Kavita in your hand, by the way? Thank you. I think that's Apple. Is that? Oh no, it's ACV. Oh, it's ACV. Our apple cider vinegar. Sorry. Thank you for being brand.
I was hoping you noticed.
I did. I was like, wait a second. A new thinking. Sorry, Mark. New thinking. It's just like, we huddled some team together on a once a week basis, my full team, and some dotted lines, and said, like, just for 30 minutes, just kind of like, what are you doing differently? Let's throw out some ideas. And a random one for me was, hey, I take phone calls and I walk around a loop around my cul-de-sac. And so I'm outside. Sorry if it's a little windy, but I need the mental break, because if I stand here in my office all day, I'm going to go crazy. And it was small things like that. Someone was like, oh, I could do that. Or I could, it was just the small things, given that everyone was kind of feeling at their breaking point. And so, flexibility, empathy, and really the new thinking. And if you need a break, we also instituted my team. I just kind of let HR know we were doing it. Once a month, you get a free day. Just take it. It's a mental health day once a month. Figure it out. We'll over communicate, and the teams will cover each other. Just like if you were sick, like, you just gotta take it. And so I think just giving people that ability to check out, and it's okay. The senior leadership says it's okay to take what you need to get it done. I think that was just very empowering for folks. And that alone, whether they take it or not, I hope they do, is kind of just like a mental respite for some folks that were like, okay, good. Because I feel like I'm always connected with my phone and my IM and my Zoom, and like, you just feel like you're tethered. So anyways, that was more than you wanted there, but
no,
yeah,
great.
It's a constant battle that we need to continue to evolve, because Pepsi, as an example, we've already said we're not going back until March at the earliest for any of our headquarters. So what was 3 months, 6 months, 9 months is going to be a year plus, and depending on how things evolve, it may be even longer.
Yeah, we actually had Ground Truth implemented. We call them R&R days. So once every 8 weeks or so, we give the entire company a random Friday off, which is awesome, because then no one at the company is bothering you, and you know that, like, nothing else is going on. Obviously, clients come first. So if PepsiCo needs something, we'll be responsive. But outside of that, no, those have been really nice to have, and we all just need to take a break every now and again, for sure.
Yeah.
This was a really great, inspiring session. I'm so lucky to have both you, Michelle, and Jim and Mark on here talking about this super authentic partnership. I love the visual that you gave us, Jim, about how it's a puzzle, not a bolt-on. And I'm going to be looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with in the future. And we're over time, so I would love to have you guys on all day, but hopefully you can come back soon and we can talk some more.
Thanks for having us. Take care.
Thank you.
All right, so next up, we are going to hear from Brad Haley, and this will be moderated by Justin Goldschmidt, Head of National Sales from Premion. Brad Haley is the Chief Marketing Officer for IHOP Restaurants. Brad was named one of the 50 most daring entrepreneurs by Entrepreneur Magazine and one of the Adweek 50, celebrating innovative leaders for blazing new trails and achieving the best results. Before joining IHOP, Brad served as CMO for CKE Restaurants, where he was responsible for all facets of marketing and PR for more than 3,000 domestic Carl Jr.'s and Hardee's restaurants. Welcome to the stage, Brad and Justin.
Hey, thanks, Pearl. Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah. It's so great to
right.
finally have you on, Brad. We've been chasing you for about 2 years to get you on one of the Brand Innovator stages, but it's great to finally have you on a virtual stage at the very least.
Thanks, Pearl. It's nice to see you virtually. Yes.
Yes. All right. Well, you guys are ready to go. I'll let you take the stage, and I'll be back while you guys are wrapping.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, Pearl. Really appreciate the great introduction. You and the Brand Innovators team continue to outdo yourself. I just, continue to be amazed at how you have innovated in a time of virtual conferences. And this is a great one. You guys have done a great job assembling some amazing speakers today. So thank you. It's a real honor to share the virtual stage with the incredible marketing leader, Brad Haley, Chief Marketing Officer of IHOP. I've gotten to know Brad really well over the last few weeks. And, we have a lot to be able to share today. My name, as Pearl introduced, is Justin Goodschmidt, the Head of National Sales for Premion. Our business was really excited to participate in today's event just due to the number of client partnerships we have in the restaurant category. As an OTT leader in advertising, it's been essential for us to help this whole industry really navigate the evolving television viewing habits and reach local streaming audiences during a very complex year. Brad and I have assembled some great questions today, and I really do look forward to him sharing, what it means to take a brand in these times and make it successful. And the iconic IHOP is really one to look at. So, Brad, you ready to get started?
Sure, let's go.
All right. So let me start by just mentioning the fact that I've been a very long time fan of IHOP, place that I went to and cherished the memories from my childhood, and fortunate enough to be able to share those same experiences with my kids today. So it really is an amazing restaurant that has been part of my life, and I was very eager to talk with you about the brand and things that you've done to take it to the next level. So why don't we start with just telling me a little bit about the brand mission, help us understand how you're steering it moving forward.
Sure, Justin, and we appreciate your business, by the way. So thank you.
If I could eat candied bacon pancakes every day, I would.
That'd be great. Well, let's see. Our brand purpose is really to welcome all people to pancake together under our blue roof, and pancake is. Pancakes treated as a verb there deliberately because it represents a lot of things. Everyone loves pancakes. Everyone loves the experience, and it just gives people a warm, fluffy feeling. So built into our brand purpose, and obviously, as a brand in the family dining space, our goal is really to give people this kind of warm and fluffy experience when they come in. It should be a memorable experience, as you outlined, Justin, where you've been coming in for years. Now that you have children of your own, you're that pattern, and that's what we've seen. We're a 63-year-old brand now. We've seen that happen for many generations, and the world changed, so we can't give that experience as easy for people in a space because of the concern in the world. But we've developed our off-premise business so that people can still have an opportunity to have that brand experience, so that shared brand experience at home, and particularly in these times, something to make them feel happy, or happy, as we like to call it. To answer the second part of your question, is my when I started a little over 3 years ago was to try to restore the brand's rightful place in popular culture, and just make it more relevant for today's guests. We have a broad range of as we discussed, children are coming in today with their parents. As they get older, they come back to the restaurant. As teenagers, they may come in after school. As young adults, they may come in after hours, because many of the restaurants are open 24 hours. They have kids and of their own, and the cycle's over. But the brand had become a bit invisible in our culture, and we've worked hard to again get it back in its rightful place.
Yeah, it absolutely has been a time where many people have appreciated some comfort food, and we continue to do so. Now, the last few months have obviously been hard on every business. In many ways, has put everyone on the same playing field. But it's specifically been impactful, and I would say that you would agree that the restaurant category was one of the hardest hit from COVID. So, let's talk a little bit about how IHOP has approached the pandemic and really adjusted to changing consumer needs during this time.
Yeah. Well, as you said, it's the restaurant industry was hit particularly hard, and service restaurants probably the hardest of most, because they were based. You come in, you bring your family, the wait's kind of part of the venture, anticipation, and then you come in and you get the food from a server that you may have a relationship with, and obviously that was kind of turned on its head in more or less the blink of an eye. So the brand had to pivot. Many in the industry had to pivot. The first pivot, of course, was from largely a dine-in business to initially exclusively an off-premise business, and that took obviously a lot of changes. We had done a lot of the work up front on online ordering capabilities, partnering with a delivery service provider. We even had packaging developed that was award-winning packaging to be able to keep a two-part container that keeps our pancakes warm on the upper layer, and kind of the meat and eggs and potatoes underneath, and the part between is vented, so everything stays hot and moist and doesn't get soggy. So we put a lot of time and effort into all of that, so you get warm and fluffy pancakes at home, just like you would. So all that work was done, but nonetheless, it was a fairly small percentage of our sales leading up to the pandemic, and literally again became 100%. So that was a part of that was the operations team kind of turning on a dime and putting curbside pickup in many locations. That was their big shift. And of course, as time went by and restaurants were allowed to offer outside seating, or before dine-in was open, a lot of restaurants turned very quickly to create outside seating, because if you forget, still do have that. Obviously, dining rooms are opening across the country, fits and starts depending upon the virus. But that was probably pivot number one. Pivot number two for us was shifting from a large national advertising and media program to one that was more localized, more digital, something that targeted on those various dining room opening restrictions. They varied across the country. They came on at different times. So it really wasn't a one-size-fits-all message by any means. So we pivoted to media, addressable media, digital media, paid social, and more personalized media and marketing as well. So those were a couple of big. Third one probably was streamlining our menu. We need to streamline our menu for a bunch of reasons. We had kind of new servers and restaurant teams as ones that may have come back after a time when the restaurants were closed. So we needed to be a simpler menu to execute. It also needed to be one guests felt more 12-page kind of multi-use menu to a 2-page piece of paper cited that was paper menu, that so people could feel comfortable and safe that it was something before and made perhaps clean multiple times. So simplifying the menu was probably the third big pick. And then of course messaging changed. I know we may talk about that in a minute, but our messaging went from kind of a new interesting food item that we have, whether it be a new pan or a lunch dinner item, to one that was more about safety and security of our guests and our restaurant team members.
it's I think rare to have a restaurant have won an award for its to-go packaging before the pandemic. I would say that was a major advantage that has played to your favor, and I know that it's been very useful to everyone who's getting the food off premise. Just tell me really quick about the franchises. There's obviously a big piece of how the business operates. How have they reacted to kind of the new approach, whether it's your menu or off premise? Have they taken any unique approaches that you've seen across the country?
Yeah, well, they understood the severity of the situation for kind of full service restaurant like ours, and reacted very. We have franchise committees that work with us on a broad spectrum of business, from operations to marketing to development to IT and technology. So we meet with them on a regular basis, and obviously that's a process at time. Not that this was that situation. This was a situation where we had to again pivot. In some cases, things maybe several months of discussion and evaluation. We had to make decisions, move, if not overnight, certainly within a matter of days or weeks. And the franchisees were right there with us. They tested a lot of things. They suggested a lot of things. So menu reduction coming up, a reduced menu. It was such a significant reduction very quickly. That's something that would cause a lot of conversation, because things that sell well in parts of the country may not sell well in others. But this was something that was absolutely the right thing to do. So everyone came together, moved quickly, got to a place on the menu, and again shifted to premise, shifted to curbside pickup, and creating outside seating capacity, seating space overnight or in a matter of days, when it was not something that was even part of our. It's almost like literally opening another, if you will. It operates a bit than our traditional dine-in and business. So I think, leaves, and it was a partnership, and we wouldn't be able to as quickly as if it was.
Sorry, but there was maybe a bit of delay there. You touched on the messaging before, and the approach that everyone took once this started to happen, and in March, where all of a sudden there was a lot of concerns throughout the country. People were not sure what was safe, what was not safe. It was the immediate reaction of brands that really started, allowing them to have the right voice during that time. So help me understand, how did your messaging really shift immediately, and where do you see it at today? Because we're really not out of this yet, and yet we all want to get back to some form of normalcy. So just if you could, deepen our understanding of your messaging, that would be great.
Sure. Well, I think our message was largely about kind of a window-driven or event-driven calendar, where we're largely based on some new innovation, whether it would be again a breakfast pancake-driven innovation or something available for lunch, dinner. That was the way we approached the calendar, and it had been worked well for us for a number of years. And then suddenly, guest needs change. We did a lot of insights work, a lot of conversations, and built around our a dime to one of initially kind of a safety message about what we were doing in the restaurants from a cleanliness and sanitation standpoint, what we were doing from a mask wearing standpoint, and creating as possible kind of environment, single use menu, et cetera. So all that was developed very quickly, if it was in place, and communicated as part of our messaging. So that was kind of message job number one. Message job number two was communicate that we were a place that people maybe hadn't thought of for off-premise before. Again, we had on sales before, but it was such a in-restaurant familial experience that a lot of people hadn't thought of us as an off-premise. So we developed off-premise options for people that were appropriate for the COVID pandemic world. Things like we call them family feasts. So something that where you could get a platter of friends, various breakfast meats, of course, or French or any of our other items. They were served in kind of in a large format, which was really what we're looking for. That was developed very quickly, and of course that would be communicated. And part of those communications included free delivery. We delivery periodically the pandemic do, because that was a way to let people know that was IHOP a good option for takeout and delivery. It was something that we would kind of reduce any barrier to trial by funding the delivery costs as well. For the first two kind of most critical jobs, communication jobs, right out of the gate when everything happened. I think the next step was based again on our guests' insights and needs. We learned that they, and not a big surprise, and when people are under stress, they want the familiar. They want something that'll give them comfort. So we promoted more of our kind of old standbys, if you will, the things that people may have remembered eating for years, one of their favorite things when they come to IHOP. So we deliberately promoted these comfort food items on our menu, of which there are many. So that was sort of the third step in the process. And now that people have kind of reached that cabin fever stage, we're starting to shift into kind of term messaging that we've been working on pre-COVID. For example, are developing the PM day part, so people to think about IHOP as more just a breakfast options. Something we've been working on for a few years now. You may remember we launched our new steak, ultimate steak burgers that created a bit of media news when we had our IHOB campaign, and a lot of people thought we were really changing our name to IHOB. But those are
convinced.
they're black Angus. They're 100% U.S. choice. They're all natural burgers. They're smashed on a grill. We butter and grill our brioche buns to them. We have a special sauce that's made in every. We had to make great burgers. That was really step one in developing our PM business. That was 2 years ago. Last to be a phenomenon, which helped. Here we developed an all-natural buttermilk crispy chicken loaf. That was step two in the process. And this year we've rolled out our iHoppy Hour, which is our happy hour program. It's from 2 in all months. And once we have menu items for the people today in the form of steak burgers and our buttermilk crispy chicken, then time to push trial and way. And iHoppy Hour is the entrees are available at $5 or $6 in some areas. And we have great menu items, the favorites, not just kind of sort of secondary items in our menu. They're the popular items are available for $6. So that's designed again to kind of reduce the barrier for people to make that last step into thinking, maybe I'll give IHOP a try this afternoon or this evening instead of just for breakfast. So we're sort of now moving, I think, after our guests seem ready for us to give something new and tell a different, rather than just them of their old favorites. And that's kind of where we're shifting now. And they're ready for more innovation now. And you'll start to see that show up our menus in the future.
Yeah, there's really some incredible innovations that you've come up with there. And as I started saying before, you be convinced on the IHOB. I thought that was officially the new name. I was waiting for the new sentence to go up.
You weren't alone.
Yeah. So the messaging is critical. Adjusting to the environment, realizing the new voice that you needed as a brand. So the natural, follow up is the media mix and getting that out to reach the right audience. I know television has been a big piece of your strategy over the years. 40% of households no longer subscribe to cable or satellite. We're in a kind of an evolving era of television. How does your media mix change so that you can effectively reach the right audience with those new messages?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned earlier, we because of the pandemic, we shifted from actually national plan to a localized one, an addressable one, just because various states of dining room capacities around the country. But you're absolutely right that there's just the long-term trend is still linear television is in a state of decline, and OTT and streaming is increasing significantly, and I think in many ways probably aided by people being homebound during the pandemic. I think the last number I saw was that OTT and streamings will approach 35% maybe even of viewership by 2025, and during that time period, it will actually supplant linear television as a primary video. Moving with it, we've been moving with that trend since it began, and we like it because it gives us opportunity to be more targeted, to have more of a closed loop attribution, if you will, as we targeted with the messaging. We can see how people react to it but more clearly because it's digital. It's not kind of a one size fits all message that serve to people that may have no intention of using your brand or even regardless of the messaging. So there's no wasted impressions with it. So we're big fans of it, and we'll continue to invest more in it as the balls go with it.
It's amazing how quick it has continued to change. It's accelerated as a result of the pandemic, and I think we're going to continue to see that shift happen. And brands are all, finding the advantages of that new capability to have the best of TV combined with the best of digital. You mentioned before the overall change in your strategy that happened from national to local, and it kind of continues to evolve based on how the United States is rebounding in different markets, different times. Is there anything you want to expand there as far as how you see being more effective with a local or regional plan compared to national strategies?
Well, as I said, it's mainly there's more. There's a better ROI associated with that kind of media because you can be more targeted. You can ask to people will either are your customers or maybe likely to be your customers because it's digital. You're serving it literally to kind of specific groups of people as opposed to broad demographics. Say so the great is the for us, obviously, in the family dining segment, families are a big we want to reach. Again, digital gives us a way to do that in a more accurate way than a broad linear buy on broadcast or cable. And the second group that we're targeting these days is because because again, there's a life cycle of our brand that we're fortunate to have a broad representation from kids of a young age all the way up to grandparents take kids to IHOP to give their kids a break. So we're fortunate that we've got a broad cross section of the population. But Jay is obviously the future, so that's one of our other key targets as well.
Yeah, you talked just a little bit about the audience, and I'd love to hear more, as you see your most important audiences evolving in that mix. Families have been critical for a long time, but who else do you really try to get in front of, and how do you effectively do that?
Well, it's really those two. And we do it with them. Obviously, we also with the products that we offer and the things that we serve and partners too. We've done we've time itself, and we know that our families have as well. When we've partnered with studio properties over the last few years, we've partnered with The Grinch and family. We've partnered with Adam's Family, the animated came out last year, and our culinary teams have creating menu items that are thematically connected to the film. So green cake, The Grinch, for example, and pancakes with purple icing for the Adams Family that looked a little spooky. It was even shaped in often shaped family. do is create an experience for go to a film and kind of extend that experience into an IHOP. It goes both ways. Obviously, in the current world, the entertainment's been as dining restaurants have been, but we hope that change over time. And if it doesn't, we'll have takeout food that's thematically linked to a movie that you may be watching in the comfort of your own home streaming.
Absolutely, and I know not a lot of families, took that option as theaters were not an option, and many movies started coming straight to streaming. So it's interesting to see how that will continue to play out. You've had a lot of success in your career, and the IHOP brand has had many successes. What would you say have been some of the most recent, highlights or successes that you're proud of sharing?
Well, we again, a big part of what we focus on is keeping the brand culturally relevant and sort of what we do with media. We're fans of activations and that like IHOP did. Obviously, that's a kind of a decade sort of a phenomenon that can't be replicated all the time, unfortunately. But a lot of million impressions that earned media impression from that. It's still a high watermark that we continue. But most recently, I think just before COVID hit, or really during that time period, we had launched cereal pancakes, a fun menu item. It had crunch and cinnamon toast on and in cakes with other toppings. And it was obviously multi-generational, though obviously kids love cereal. It's something that I think we all grew with as well. So it was a fun product that's actually on a brand own. But we like to have some, again, sort of an activation to additional interest, media interest in what we're doing. Developed. We had pancakes. So we developed a pancake cereal called Pan Flakes, and we were prepared to launch that on a limited scale. But again, when those plans were put on hold, but TikTok actually sort of spurred a mini movement towards sort of DIY mini. People were making pancakes in whole, and we happen to have Pan Flakes idea developed that again we had for the pandemic. We're to the packaging, and it became quite a big media. We had people that signed up to be close friends of the brand, so we can keep them updated on the status of Pan Flakes. But we still hope to bring it to the world in the future in form. So it sounds pancake flavor and shape cereal for the world. So that was kind of a fun one that we kind of we made most of an idea that we would have been fun to bring to the world, and fortunately it kind of developed legs on its own on TikTok. So we were able to share it with the world. But again, we still bring that to the world in physical form here in the future. I'd say is just the work we've done again to develop our PM, which is a multi-year effort with burgers, and now again our IRP programs to get people to come and bring the afternoon and well into the evening, 2 to 10 p.m. With great delicious entrees for $6. That's kind of step 3 in the process, and there'll be more to come.
Yeah, I can't imagine it was easy transitioning a business that was known for breakfast into the PM, part of the day. And I think you've done an incredible job to do so. It's the brand itself is kind of recognized as a family dining segment. How do you see the future of that category shaping up?
Well, I think the future is at least for the foreseeable future a continuation of where we are now. I think it's a combination of dine-in and off-premise much bigger percentage of our sales than think continuing for the foreseeable future. All sites we see from our guests and just kind of restaurant guests in general indicate there's still a significant percentage of the population that's concerned about dining in. Regardless of whether you're open for business and you can accept people in your dining room or not, there's just people that will continue to be uncomfortable for some period of time. And they'll want to avail themselves of off premise, whether it be delivery or takeout or whatever. So that'll continue to be a significant part of our business. And I think our segment, family dining segment for the foreseeable future, hopefully again balanced by people increasingly being comfortable with the dine-in experience, just because they have fond memories of those experiences and want to get back to them. Obviously, we as long as our brand and other brands can give them a comfort that we can deliver that in a safe environment with things like a single-use menu, with cleaning and sanitation practices, with wearing masks, et cetera, and to the extent possible, kind of contactless and other interactions.
Absolutely. Well, I see some great questions rolling in here, and I'm looking forward to going through a few of these. But just the last thing I'll ask is, what are you most excited for this coming year? I think is going to be interesting. It's hard to predict exactly how it will play out, but what gets you excited about the coming year?
Well, I think you kind of touched on, Justin. The thing that would be exciting for me is if we become a predictable. But I think there is hopefully there's a vaccine in our future. People will be comfortable kind of getting back to some normality again. The world's maybe changed forever for times. So it will absolutely be a new normal, but hopefully people get back somewhat closer to the old behaviors. And we'll be able to do the things that we are fun to do and that we know our guests enjoy. Things like more innovation and kind of and giving people an opportunity to be hoppy again in our restaurant. To that, then we think we've done our jobs.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so we hopefully have time for just a few of these questions. I'll kick it off with the first one here, which is, how do you ensure team members feel engaged and inspired in a remote working world? So, I think that's impacted your business a little differently. So just tell me how in general you've kept your employees feeling safe, I think, first and foremost, and continue to be engaged in this new environment.
Yeah. Do you think, Justin, that's referring to corporate kind of our?
It's probably a little bit of both.
Teams?
Yeah, I think it's both the the staff, the restaurants, as well as your corporate staff.
Yeah. Well, I'll start with I guess my team at corporate. Obviously, our headquarters offices are closed. They have been. They're open for things like test kitchen work, but we're maintaining social distances. But people, for the most part, continuing to work from home and meeting virtually. We were fortunate. The team had been together for the entire team, with a few exceptions, have been together for 3 years. So we knew each other. We had a relationship. So it was helpful for us to be able to continue that relationship just in a virtual way. So I think that helped people sort of stay engaged because they had those face-to-face relationships before it went into virtual. Being able to work at home gives them obviously a feeling of comfort and safety as well, and that's continuing for the foreseeable future. I think the way that they derive probably feeling of satisfaction about the work is when projects they've been able to work on for some period of time. Life is the thing that always made the marketing world fun is that accomplishment when you can work on something for a while and then it goes out into the world and people experience it for themselves. It's not kind of working away in a job where people may never see your work outside of the walls you're in. But I think people, as their projects come to life, I think that's when they see the fun and derive the reward from doing so.
Well, I see Pearl's video, which usually means like the Oscar music. That's her cue. But I'm going to give you one last question, just because I think it's a good one. That somebody noticed all the charitable events and partnerships that you've done, which I think is incredible, and how it's impacting local communities. And the question just came in if this is something you look to continue making part of your strategy in 2021.
No, absolutely. We've contributed. We've as charitable partners for a variety of years. Probably our biggest one is Children's Miracle Network of Hospitals, and they've been our primary partner, but others as well that we contribute to, and we plan to continue that going forward. Obviously, one of our biggest fundraisers was a national pancake, and it's an opportunity we gave free pancakes on that day, and encourage people to donate to our charity. That was our biggest single fundraiser. Well, obviously, in the current event we're in, we're not in a position to have kind of a single day traffic driving event. So we're doing that for next year, and we'll be announcing fairly soon what that is. But it's a much safer way that we'll be just generating donations for our partners. But that's a big part of what we do, and family and children-based charities are at the center of that.
Yeah, that's incredible. Thanks. Brad, this has been enlightening. I have really enjoyed the conversation. I hope everyone has some really great takeaways today. You have done incredible work with the IHOP brand, and keep it up. Good things to come.
Good. Well, thank you very much, Justin. Appreciate it. And Pearl.
Yeah, great job. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, you're a legend. I mean, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but you're behind some of those risque commercials that Carl's Jr.'s that used to have with Paris Hilton. And then a couple years ago, you had this fun PR stunt with changing the IHOP name to IHOB when you were promoting your burgers. And everybody thought it was going to be a real thing. That was crazy with all the earned media you got from that. You didn't bring that up, but it's a huge thing. I don't know if you're going to have another stunt coming up maybe end of year, the next year, but I really would be excited to see it. You come up with some really innovative things. Yeah.
Thanks. We like to flip expectations. We love our pancakes, so you can always expect a few surprises from us in the future.
I can't wait. I'll keep an eye on you.
Thanks. All right. Thanks, everybody. Enjoyed it.
Thanks so much.
Take care.
Thanks, Justin. You did great. All right. We'll see you both soon, hopefully.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, now we have up next Barry Westrom of Taco John's and Rob Kenny of Dosh. Barry Westrom was named Chief Marketing Officer at Taco John's earlier this year in May. Prior to Taco John's, Barry was Chief Marketing Officer for Del Taco, and prior to that, he served as EVP of Marketing for Dairy Queen. And before that, Chief Marketing Officer at KFC. And before that, he was Chief Marketing Officer at AW and Long Silver's Restaurants. So that's over 10 years in C-suite. That's pretty impressive. And then this chat will be moderated by Rob Kenny. He's a Director of Restaurant Partnerships at Dosh. Welcome to the stage, Michael and Rob. Do you go by Michael, Barry?
My first name is Michael, and I go by my middle name, Barry. So my apologies for the screen confusion there.
Wasn't sure if you were borrowing your son's laptop or something.
Right. Yeah, there's that too. Yeah.
All right. Well, it looks like you guys are ready to go. I'll bow out now, and then I'll come back towards the end of your session.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right, guys. Well, thanks. From pancakes and burgers to tacos. I'm excited to talk here with Barry. First off, Rob Kenny here, Director of Restaurant Partnerships at Dosh. If you don't know about us, we are the fastest growing cashback card-linked, frictionless platform that sits right at the intersection of brands, restaurant and retailers, and diners as well. Our focus is to drive more sales, higher average check, as well as visit frequency for thousands of brands, retailers, and restaurants across the country. But right now, I'm very excited to introduce to you all Barry. So joining today, the CMO of Taco John's, Barry Westrom. He's an industry vet with experience across the QSR spectrum. And obviously, there's no one better to tell the story here about Taco John's and the future of the food of industry. Barry Westrom. Welcome, Barry.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Awesome. Well, we're going to dive in. So it seems like the topic of the year, of course, is COVID-19. So let's just dive right there. It seems like when everything changed, obviously you took on the new role here, but you arrived there right when it was getting started and the pandemic was taking hold of American life. Like most marketers, I'm sure you had to immediately pivot, kind of figuring things out, but and probably pivot again once after that. But tell us about those first couple weeks.
Sure. Well, so our story is a little bit different. Well, maybe not a little bit, a lot different than other folks. I mean, of course, worlds were upended, but as a brand and as a company, so for decades, we were really, ever since our inception, we were based in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and the brand made the decision in 2019 to move most of its operations to Minneapolis, Minnesota. Minnesota has the most number of stores of all of the states that we're in. We're in 22 states, and you can get to something like 40% of the chain within a 4-hour drive of Minneapolis. So, and nothing against Cheyenne, Wyoming, but there was an opportunity to tap into the wonderful marketing, culinary, operations, financial talent that is in Minneapolis. So the brand made the decision to move in 2019 out here to Minneapolis. So, and the office opened March 4th. We know what was happening, right around March 18. So literally, we were in the middle of the move, and in some instances, we had folks, driving their belongings from Cheyenne, Wyoming, to Minneapolis, Minnesota, when the shutdown occurred. And so, so I liken it to, we're a brand in chaos, and an industry in chaos, and a society in chaos, right? And so those first few days and weeks were crazy, maybe even crazier than what other folks experienced. But it was all about, working 7 days a week, trying to stay on top of all of the ever-changing governmental restrictions, advice from CDC. And remember, it was on a state-by-state basis, county-by-county basis, city-by-city basis. And so, for a chain restaurant where typically, scale and consistency is the order of the day, the notion of being able to react to individual cities and counties' health department restrictions was just added to the chaos. But, we got our footing relatively quickly. To your point, we pivoted to, call it family values. I mean, this, when you were stuck at home and, party size increased dramatically, and the fact that we had a drive-through, which relative to other restaurant options made it a safer option, our business really grew, and we had an opportunity to kind of focus on some of our menu classics at the right price. And we very quickly went from negative sales to positive same-store sales growth, and for much of the year outperforming the quick serve restaurant category. So it was quite a journey, just like everyone else. But we've been able to come out from a business perspective in a pretty good place.
That's incredible, actually, because obviously we know so much about those brands that haven't fared so well, and certainly there are some that have fared better, but obviously a lot of uncertainty, especially when you're opening up a new office, especially figuring out daily routine going to be like when you don't really have one yet. So how would you say kind of the new normal, how have you adapted, how has Taco John's adapted to what would, if there's a new normal to say that yet?
Yeah, it has, it has, I think, in many instances, accelerated innovation, right? And in all aspects of our business. Operational procedures, we might be testing, during the height of kind of the craziness, we were testing in the morning and rolling out system-wide in the afternoon. I mean, it was that kind of, and really what that does is necessity, breeds innovation. And so you kind of roll that into, to your point earlier, new marketing chief kind of stepping in, having to dig into the brand, understand the pipeline and the people and the franchisees and such. we were looking under every rock and every stone just to determine where are the opportunities, where can we find those opportunities that are going to drive the business, and how do we leverage the assets that we have. So it was, but I think what it's, chaos has become the new normal, and so. But I don't think it's a bad thing. Frankly, I think it's a good thing. I think it has prompted innovation, courage, drive to do things differently, because our business has changed more in the, and a lot of folks have talked about this, but more in the last 6 months than it has in the last, to a certain extent, 60 years. And so it has become the order of the day. And so, a fast-paced industry has become all the more fast-paced. And I think it's created just a very exciting kind of environment where every day we are, conventional timelines and conventional processes to get things done and bring innovation to market are being blown up, and we're doing it collectively, we're doing it collaboratively, and I think we're doing it in a way that is going to make our business, and I think for all of us, I think our category stronger going forward.
Oh, no doubt. And kind of, you talked about some of the things, obviously from a menu perspective, which we'll talk about that in a second, but I'm curious to know from the innovation standpoint, forces you to kind of really look at things differently. What's worked so far for you?
Yeah. Well, as I kind of alluded to, with party size increasing, and if you think about QSR, I think historically the party size is, 1.6, 1.7, something like that. So more often than not, it's a single customer, particularly during that, the lunch and even the dinner day parts. And it's basically doubled overnight. And so now, we are, we're all having to provide more family solutions or multi-party solutions as opposed to individual, which is it's very different from an operating perspective for us, right? Because you can obviously produce one order of, call it entree, side, and drink a lot faster than you can do, 3 entrees, 4 sides, and 4 drinks, that kind of thing. And so it's really caused us and some other folks in the category to really simplify menus. You kind of heard Brad talking about that, and simplify offerings. So for us, and if anybody, for those who are familiar with our brand, a great Upper Midwest brand. One of our claims to fame is our potato olays. They're little bites of heaven. It's been described to me as, but and of course the classic taco. And so we've always had an offering on our menu called 6-pack and a pound, where you get a 6-pack of tacos and a pound of potato olays, and we do it for fixed price point, $10, $11, and we saw this increase, dramatically during the first few days of the shutdown. Then we went into a promotion mode on it, saw it increase even more, and that increase in the business is sustained through the entire summer and here into the fall. So, we're developing other bundles and line extensions off that, other dips and add-ons that, beverage add-ons or different dip add-ons for the potato olays that are very consistent with the operating platform and are very profitable to the operator. So it's causing us to kind of rethink our business model around how do we better compete with pizza. I think it's been well documented that pizza is crushing it during this time period, and so how do we better build menu options for that group occasion in a way that we likely hadn't considered in the past.
That's great. And I think, we had some time to talk about that obviously prior, but, talk about maybe the frequency of the guests coming in. Are they pizza night? We all know there's a pizza night, right? But have you seen your guest patterns and frequency shift since then, like you said, with this bundle opportunity?
Yeah. So the category, has been running negative in traffic for a few years now, and the pandemic has only accelerated that. So while, I think as a category, many brands have returned to positive sales, they're doing so via guest spend or check, not through transactions. Transactions continue to be negative. And we've seen similar things in our business. Interestingly, we've seen, although we're still negative in transactions, we've got about a 1 or 2 point advantage relative to the category on traffic. And so we think some of that has to do, like I said, in terms of having an offer that's really relevant right now. We also think that has to do with the upper Midwest nature of the brand. And so we really just want to continue to capitalize on that. Some of the things that we were tackling from, before COVID are continuing to be on our agenda. We've got some exciting things planned for 21. And really it's all about getting traffic moving in the right direction. If we can get traffic moving in the right direction and continue to capitalize on this increased party size and what that's doing to check, sales and profitability will only increase for franchisees.
Agreed. So it's a good segue into kind of your brand mantra of bigger, bolder, bigger. How you've been able to kind of relate to that and really activate that during these times.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you, it really is an exciting time to be at the brand. Again, big move from Cheyenne to Minneapolis, really signaling to our franchisees, the investment community, prospective franchisees that this wonderful 50-year-old brand's looking to really accelerate its trajectory of growth over the course of the next 5 and 10 years. And bigger, better, bolder is just a great kind of summation of the way we're thinking about the brand. Bigger, is really about mindset and thinking. Really expanding the boundaries of the brand, both physically and geographically. Better is a quality play. I mean, look, it's Taco Bell is a fabulous competitor, and but they have an Achilles heel in product quality, and we can leverage that. Fresh preparation is a cornerstone of our brand. We make our taco shells and tortilla chips fresh in restaurant every morning. We make all of our salsas fresh in restaurant every morning. These are things that Taco Bell doesn't do, frankly, and our consumers know that and give us a nod on quality. And I think we can take that to the next level. And bolder is a great kind of reference to our opportunity to really expand our menu. Again, I've talked about our upper Midwest nature of the brand, and I mean, literally, meat and potatoes is the name of some of our products. We have wonderful meat and potato burritos and such, but we have a distinct opportunity to really capitalize on all the trends featuring Mexican food around flavor profiles, texture profiles that make the innovation palette, if you will, around Mexican food such a great place to innovate around. And so bigger, better, bolder really does, I think, symbolize what we are doing as a company and as a brand, and how we want to move forward with our customer.
Okay, that's awesome. So let's talk about the food now a little bit more specifically, because you kind of mentioned the competitive set to a degree, and you guys have made a shift to a more of a value with quality strategy.
Yeah.
And so how do you balance the two without compromising either, and effectively how do you do that successfully, right?
Yeah. It's again, the big opportunity is to really leverage our quality, but we can do so while delivering value. So, our category exists obviously because of value and convenience. I think 1 in 4 transactions are driven by the consumer guiding, how much money they have in their pocket that day relative to what, whether lunch is going to be at, fast casual dining, or quick serve. And we're in the development of a really cool new value menu right now where I think we can do both. So as an example, we'll still feature the low single-digit price points, i.e. $1, $2, or $3, but we can do so with menu items that leverage our fresh prep. So one of the other, we hand cut sirloin steak in restaurant every morning. And we can feature that in tacos and burritos and such. And we can do that at $2 and $3. So that is far better entree offering than any other any of our competitors. We have all white meat chicken, we have bacon, we have guacamole, and so all of these wonderful ingredients that you don't typically find on a value menu will be on our value menu, and that allows us to really take the high road on quality, even when we're talking about value. And so, if you think about the way consumers think about the competitive set, we want them to think about us when they want something better. Again, tying into the bigger, better, bolder tagline.
That's awesome. So you kind of touched on a little bit about this, about, if you were to look at a tiered menu, well, how would you recommend putting a tiered value strategy together? You kind of touched a little bit on it, but maybe talk a little bit further about how do you make one of those successful? Yeah.
The other, a lot of folks in the industry, and it makes a good deal of sense, is this notion of a barbell menu strategy where you've got to be strong on the low end and strong on the high end. The beauty of our quality positioning will help us on the high end as well. So again, in every town in America, there is a Chipotle or a Moe's or a Pancheros or something like that, these fast casual burrito shops, which don't have a drive-through. Right. They are expensive, and they could be time consuming. And so we can do things that compete against that. So for example, earlier this year, we launched a line of burritos and bowls called the Boss Burrito and Bowl. These are big burritos featuring, all white meat chicken and steak and house-made salsas and all of that wonderful stuff. But we can do it at $6, whereas that same burrito at Chipotle, could be $9 or $10, and you got to get out of your car and all of that. So we've been very overt in our communications about positioning our brand against that competitor, and saying, essentially daring the consumer to find a better burrito for the same price. And our consumers really responded with how they're spending their dollars in the restaurant, and with, as I mentioned, outperforming the category on transactions. So, that's going to be our playbook. Is attacking Taco Bell from a quality perspective, and attacking fast casual burritos from a price and convenience perspective. And we think we can succeed in every town in America in that regard.
Well, it's a good segue, because you kind of talked about your playbook. Let's talk about how you're going to do that. So your CEO, Jim Creel, recently shared some thoughts around how promotions via the app are going to be a big part of your sales going forward, and keeping guests aware with those types of special offers, especially to help drive those new visits from somebody who hasn't been there. So how important would you say are promotions, and especially right now?
Yeah. So we're on a very focused frequency strategy. We have, we have a fair amount of lapsed users that, for whatever reason, don't come to us as frequently as they do McDonald's and Taco Bell, to be quite honest. And so, this is where the app is a huge asset for us, because we know our app users visit more frequently and spend more dollars on each visit. And I don't think, as a brand, frankly, we've been as aggressive as we should be in terms of our customer acquisition strategy. And so, we've added to all of our communications the emphasis on the app this year. We have seen app downloads increase dramatically this year, but it was off a low base. But we want to continue. We want to accelerate that as we move forward. I've kind of set the audacious goal for my digital team to double app transactions within a year. We all know the beauty of the of individual campaigns and the personalization that comes along with that. And that's going to be a big part of our strategy going forward, especially for a brand like ours, where we don't have the biggest media budget. We're not going to be able to outspend anybody, but we can certainly outsmart our competitors. And the ability to do, smart offers, the right offer to the right person at the right time, is what's going to generate that incremental traffic. And so that's where the app is a real cornerstone in our digital transformation going forward.
Well, yeah, and I think a good keyword would be nimble, right? I mean, obviously, I think resilient. A lot of brands have been that way, or been forced to, and then obviously nimble. So you guys sound like you're in a great position. All right, we're going to probably go to questions here in a few minutes. So I want to jump to another section, just kind of the relevancy of our topic here in the future. You kind of already mentioned some of this. So the future state of growth for Taco John's. Yeah. But I'm going to go through a couple different kind of buzzwords, if you were, topics. So just give us. There's no wrong answer, just maybe your thoughts, a headline on each one of these. And I'll start with, if you think about the future of food and dining, and I'm going to throw the word kitchen automation.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't, there's been a lot of, kind of buzz around robots in the kitchen. I've seen some of that in the past, and frankly, it doesn't work. Ours is a people business. It will always be a people business. We have to be the employer of choice. And in my experience, when you're the brand of choice, you become the employer of choice. And that's certainly our strategy going forward there.
Okay, next one, kind of on those heels, is staffing.
Yeah. I think that's the same thing. I've been on brands where, for example, when I was at International Dairy Queen, one of the very first lessons I got from one of our franchisees was that because Dairy Queen was such a beloved brand, he had employees that would much rather work at Dairy Queen than the McDonald's or Burger King across the street, even if they might be able to make a quarter or 50 cents more an hour at that location. It was because of the brand love that made us the desired employer. So that's precisely what we can and should do at Taco John's. Is we have a cult-like following up here in the Upper Midwest. We're going to leverage that, and by making us the brand of choice, I think we'll become the employer of choice going forward.
Okay, next one is delivery. Yeah.
Game changer, right? We've got to get the economics right. We've got to prove that it's incremental. I mean, those are the debates that we have internally and with our third-party partners. And again, because of our Upper Midwest nature, we have a lot of rural locations where we don't have coverage yet. So these are all the things that we're working on, but definitely here to stay. And I think a big part of our growth going forward.
Okay, next one we'll say is advertising and media mix.
Yeah, we still rely on traditional television and radio every week. We still see when we are on traditional television, that first and second week sales increase, guest count increase, product mix increase. So traditional television is not dead yet. Yes, we're shifting more to over the top. Yes, we're shifting to more streaming radio, and of course we're spending more in social and digital. But we still rely fairly heavily on the traditional mediums, and it's part of what's helping drive our growth.
Okay, so the last one on the future would be, what's the future of the taco?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, the thing we talk about here a lot is really the taco is not a physical thing; it's more of an existential thing. It's a state of mind, and we've done a lot of work with the consumer over the years. And the interesting thing about Mexican food in general and tacos in particular is that when you ask consumers about how tacos make them feel relative to burgers and fries, because that's who we're primarily competing with in our category, burgers and fries make you want to nap, leave you lethargic, that kind of thing. But tacos leave you light and energized and ready to tackle the rest of the day. And so, that's really what we think about when we think about tacos as a lifestyle, as opposed to tacos as a source of fuel. So it really allows you to rethink the carrier, rethink the protein, rethink the toppings, There's so much great work being done in regional tacos. You think about what's going on down in Texas and such. And so, we think that's a big opportunity for us, is taking some of this, some of these regional flavors and making them national through our footprint. So I can't think of a better platform to innovate on, and that is the state of mind that is the taco.
Well, I love it. And you know what? Tacos tonight, I think, for me, after this
There you go.
discussion. All right, let's take a few questions from the audience here. So the first one, what's going to change forever in dining rooms for Taco John's because of the pandemic? Do you see more drive-through action happening or interaction as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So our business was, call it 65, 70% drive-through. And now it's close to 90. And because we do have a handful of dining rooms open, and so really what it's done is it's forced us to be really, really good at the drive-through. And, it's 75% of Americans will go to a quick serve restaurant within 2 weeks. So we all experience it all the time. And, there's so many moments of truth in the customer journey. Even before you even pull onto the lot, you might eyeball, what's that line look like? And if that line looks long, you'll make the left into McDonald's as opposed to the right into the Taco John's. So, speed of service, customer throughput, simplified menus, not compromising on quality or the experience. Frankly, I think we're going to invest more in packaging. We're going to invest more in the customer experience in terms of maybe you're served with lap trays and boxes as opposed to bags and plastic, those dreaded plastic bags and such. And so the experience is going to get better. I think the value will always be there, and frankly will only get better because for so many consumers and investors for that matter, they're rediscovering the drive-through as a means of growth for all of the drive-through brands. You see the fast casual brands exploring with drive-through options, right? And we fundamentally believe that as a brand, we are far better set up to succeed in this environment where the drive-through is the channel of choice in restaurants and will be for some time. And of course, from a human perspective, we all want to get back to normal. But from a business perspective, if we continue to give the consumer these great experiences from the drive-through, they'll reward us long term with their loyalty, and that's what we're striving to do.
So hard to get after that, but that's such a great point. A next question here: what can heritage brands learn from new digital-first brands when it comes to authentically marketing to Gen Z?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and we do learn a ton. I'll be quite honest. We understanding mobile first, understanding the digital experience. We have to increase our investment in that arena. We've had to we've become a fast follower, if you will, to some of these digital native brands and such. But I think at the end of the day, what we offer is, again, that expertise in the drive-through, in the sense that there's a lot of talk in our category around ghost kitchens and things like that. And while those are definitely very interesting, we're going to see how the way that kind of evolves. You still have to build a brand, and the classic brand building tools around fundamentally understanding the consumer, delivering on their needs, communicating, building that emotional connection, really tough to do in a startup kind of ghost kitchen environment. So we'll learn from them, but we're going to take the best of their kind of digital trainings, but apply that to the brands and the channels that consumers know so well.
Okay, I think we have time for one or two more. But when it comes to communicating with your consumers, how do you think about brand purpose? And how does that impact your approach to marketing?
Yeah, that's a great point. We've done a lot of work around our brand purpose this year, and at the end of the day, we landed on this notion of excitement, in the sense that, look, for our brand, we may not have the best location relative to McDonald's. You might have to go a little bit further down the block and make the left into the parking lot as opposed to the right. And so we have to become a destination. And rather than thinking of food as fuel, we've really challenged ourselves, our franchisees, to think about, food as a means of excitement. And, again, we have a huge advantage because of the Mexican palate, and we can, there's a texture thing, there's a flavor thing that goes on. And if we are creating experiences that genuinely excite the consumer, both in terms of food, in terms of their digital experience, in terms of their customer service experience, if we're exciting the consumer, then we're going to become that destination of choice. And so that's been a big part of our efforts this year, and we're excited about where we've landed.
Awesome. Well, I see Pearl. I think we're at time, aren't we? So I guess we'll wrap it here. All right. Well, listen,
I'm starving.
I know it's Taco Friday tonight. So
right.
Barry,
Don't forget Taco Tuesdays.
It's been awesome. Thanks for chatting with us today. And obviously under your leadership, I think there's going to be some great things, and look forward to some much success with Taco John's here in the future. So thank you. And I'll pass it back to you, Pearl.
Thanks so much.
Rob. Thanks, Michael. I'm excited to try Taco John's. I'm here in Colorado this month, so I have opportunity to drop by one of your locations. It's like the in and out of the Midwest. I see all the buzz that the local community has for it. So
excellent.
Kudos.
Good.
Thanks so much for joining us. Hopefully you can come back soon. So next up, we have Calvin Lammers of Health Aid and Eli Chapman of Celtra. Calvin Lammers is a 9-year e-commerce veteran who started his career on the retail side with Target. Calvin made his first foray into e-commerce with Quidsi, an Amazon subsidiary. Since then, Calvin has moved over to the brand side, running e-commerce for a number of food and beverage disruptor brands such as Kind Snacks and Bay Brands. Prior to joining Health Aid, Calvin was director of e-commerce at Spindrift, where he built the brand's e-commerce platform from the ground up. When Calvin joined the Health Aid, he saw an opportunity to grow the brand's e-commerce business, something often seen as a challenge. Calvin believes the kombucha category was an opportunity for growth, especially in the online space. Despite the packaging and fulfillment logistics used in cold chain shipping, additionally, Calvin is working to reduce Health Aid's packaging waste and ship e-commerce orders with eco-friendly materials. This fireside chat will be moderated by Eli Chapman, SVP of Sales and Marketing at Celtra. Welcome to the stage, Calvin and Eli.
Well, thank you very much, Pearl.
To start happy hour early with some rosé.
Well, that's perfect. I got to go to the fridge and grab mine as well. So he beat me to it.
Mm-hmm. Join me. All right. Well, I'm going to be sipping on this while you guys take the stage. I'll be back later.
All right, thank you. Hi, Calvin.
Hey, Eli. Nice to see you here.
Yeah, nice to see you as well. Nice to see you in person over the screen here.
Yeah, I know we're both in Brooklyn, so I know we're somewhat close in person, not quite so as close as we can get right now.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Actually, a quick anecdote on kombucha. I had a friend who lived in New York City in the late 90s that I used to come visit, and he'd brought over from Australia kombucha, and he used to have it in big massive jars. It's just the original. What is it called? The source of the
SCOBY.
The SCOBY. Amazing. Back then.
Look at how far we've come, man. And now we're delivering it straight to your door. So
it's incredible. Yeah, Calvin, I think it would be interesting to start with, you've worked at a number of food and drink companies and in e-com. And, obviously we're in the middle of a pandemic and it's accelerated things dramatically, but you've seen many changes. Maybe just take us through a little bit about your career, but calling out sort of the the milestones in that evolution of e-com to now that we can get kombucha delivered to our doors.
Exactly, and thank you, Eli. So yeah, it's really been fascinating to watch both on the personal side, as a consumer, to see the evolution of e-commerce, especially in the grocery space, but obviously on the actual brand side, being behind the scenes and kind of seeing what's developed. And I like to say that, there's been so much change in general in the space over the last 10 years, but this year, especially as you kind of hinted at, that there's been almost more change in just 2020 alone than there has been in the previous 9 years combined. So it's just been, it's so fascinating to watch. And really in kind of looking back and how we got here, how it was even like an option for this proliferation to kind of happen overnight or so rapidly. It really was kind of, a couple of factors. I think looking back, the biggest change really that's happened is just the fragmentation and proliferation of options and choices for consumers. But that didn't used to be the case. When I was with Kind, we were one of the first food and beverage brands to really invest in Amazon and really view that as a major opportunity to penetrate a well-established category, the granola bar category, and go up against some major competitors, the Nature Valley, the Cliffs of the world, and that really hadn't been done before. But it was kind of a singular focus on Amazon, since there really wasn't many other options out there. And so I think we got in at a perfect time, that as Amazon was growing their focus on the grocery category, Prime membership adoption was also increasing at that time. So we we're able to kind of organically take advantage of that kind of swell insurgent adoption and focus on Amazon. And then that obviously proliferated a number of better for you brands, and also making that a key focus for them. You add on DTC channels, and that becoming a major focus. You look at Hint Water or the Soylents of the world. That was another huge option for challenger brands and startup food and beverage brands, and widely getting those instead of fighting for shelf space, being able to compete on the digital front, which was not as competitive at that stage. So those couple of things then led into, recently, or the last couple of years, it's been the last mile and BOPIS. So again, just more options for the consumer. So you have the Instacarts and the Ships of the world. So you can, get your local groceries delivered, your assortment, and have that typical shopper that you utilize, or, BOPIS, where you're buying online and picking up store. It's just that comfort level with digital, and buying groceries on digital has become more and more widely adopted. And now, obviously, this year, in large part due to necessity, that's quickly become adopted. But having that background and legwork with people being more comfortable in buying their groceries online, I think has eased that transition. And now that people have widely started using that, kind of as we proceed, there's going to be a lot of that retention and adoption continuing in the future. So it's been fascinating to watch.
That's great. It is incredible just how the whole thing's accelerated. It's almost like how broadband, just like originally it was these local providers, and you're fighting to get a good connection, and then then one day, just everywhere you go, there's an internet connection, and it opens up all these opportunities. It's tremendous.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned fragmentation, and as a consumer, fragmentation can be a delight because you've got just all these options, right?
Right.
And it's, as a brand, it's an opportunity. It can be terrifying, though, I can imagine, as well, though. You've got that challenge of standing out on the shelf, and how do you connect to a consumer? Can maybe just talk about how e-com can be used to differentiate in a world where fragmentation is the norm and consumers have all these choices.
Right, and that's, I think it's interesting to view it that, again, as the brand view. I think obviously more choice and options, for the end consumer is a great thing, and as a consumer, you want as many options and take advantage of that kind of endless or limitless shelf. From the brand side, that becomes more and more of a challenge. Kind of going back to that example with Kind. I don't know if there's a more fragmented or crowded space currently in the food and beverage space than the bar category. It seems like there's a new bar brand launching every day now. So really finding that point of difference and sticking out above the noise, so to speak, can be a challenge. But that's where I think you do have an advantage with digital and e-com, because of the different tactics and insights and speed and quickness that you're able to leverage just the technology and platform to your advantage. You obviously need the skill set and knowledge to be able to do so, but it at least facilitates that or enables that opportunity. So I think that's where it's really hitting on building out that full marketing funnel, an integrated marketing funnel to really hit on those key points of difference. An example I have when I was at Spindrift is that we kind of had differentiated ourselves, by saying, sparkling water, a lot are very similar, clear, using essences. With Spindrift, the difference was that real fruit and color along with it. So in all of our marketing, kind of campaigns, assets, every step of the funnel, we had that as a key message, and we were able to hit home on that. So we had an OTT campaign where we're featuring real people squeezing real fruit, showing the color of the product. In all of our DSP campaigns, then we kind of hit home on that message as well. Then on any follow-up retargeting or PDP pages, also kind of hitting home on that point of differentiation and messaging. So you can really have that cohesive messaging and campaign. And then outside of that, you also can get much more granular in terms of the targeting. So if you're looking at customers that are shopping better for you products, you can change or already are purchasing better for you products. You probably have a different messaging or kind of approach to how you're trying to get them into the funnel versus if you have another consumer that they've only drank CSD in the past. That's going to be another different messaging, and the ability for digital allows you is to be much more granular and targeted with that messaging and hitting home that point of difference in more directly to where that consumer is at in their journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to hold on one question about content and the comms touchpoints, which I think you just hinted on, that I think is really interesting. Just to first ask, we talk about consumers, but there's also this opportunity to think of consumers as members or as part of your community. And you talked a little bit, used the word community at one point. Maybe can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, how do you think of it? It feels like there's this opportunity to create these great connections with your fans and with people. How do you think of them at Health Aid?
Yeah. So at Health Aid, we definitely see us building a community here. I think most certainly start as consumers. So as you're trying to get somebody into the brand ecosphere, you're viewing them as consumers. But then that's where that retention and kind of relationship management comes into play, where you're building that relationship with each consumer over time, and ultimately building them to be a part of the actively engaged community. And I think this also goes into more, kind of part of what the innate kind of value with a challenger or kind of emerging brand is that you really want to build a community and have your consumers end up being brand advocates, because that really is a valuable kind of point to get into that in that relationship with the consumer. If you have somebody that knows and speaks and loves the brand and the products, the messaging, the ethos, what Health Aid stands for, that one-to-one communication as they're then kind of advocating or recommending products to their network, that is much more high impact than any other marketing tactic that you could possibly layer on top of that. So to be able to build that community and have that rich sense of engagement, that's the ultimate goal, and that's what we're building and what we have at Health Aid. I think what we're super excited about here, I'm about a little over 4 months in at Health Aid, is really layering on the digital kind of aspect to that. So we're in the process of building out our rewards and loyalty program, really to have that more enhanced experience for our consumers, and really have that platform to create that next level of engagement and touch points with the brand. And that's just going to facilitate so many exciting options. Obviously, as we know, there's a number of brands that have done that well, but adding that on for Health Aid and adding that as part of the mix to kind of that community engagement is super important. And that's what I've seen at some previous brands that I've worked with as well. And just it's super exciting, and it kind of layers on to everything else that we're doing on the digital front.
Yeah, do you have, is there, how can you layer in the brand advocacy as part of the e-com experience? Not just in the loyalty side, but as part of checkout, or is it part of bringing people in? What is it about brand advocacy that you can tie into e-com?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things. There's obviously the a referral. That's kind of the basic 101 option is a referral program. Obviously, a lot of DTC brands have done that. What I've seen work really well is kind of a trial or a sampling program where we actually did this at Kind, where we would give kind of our Kindaholics, as we call them, your super loyal fans. They would sign up for a program. We would send them 10 sample cards that they would be able to give out to 10 of their friends or families, and have them to come redeem onto our website, our DTC store, get kind of a sample package, and then build out that as kind of a lead gen opportunity, all kind of utilizing and participating with that community that we built out. And so I think there's a couple of ways that you can go, but I think sampling, referral is kind of the most immediate ones right off the bat. But you can also go on the digital sampling route, so it doesn't even need to be physical. Obviously, as we lived in more socially distanced, you can look at digital sample opportunities where you're sharing codes or sample coupons with your network as well. So a couple of different ways that you can do that. But again, it's all with that kind of personal connection, and that network, I think, goes a very long ways.
That's great. Yeah, it's really interesting to think about those digital connections to a program like sampling, and then also what is sampling in the new pandemic in the world that we have.
In the new world, yeah. Anymore. That still remains to be seen. I know that's something that we're obviously still trying to kind of figure out as well, since just a lot of the typical or previous kind of sampling opportunities are not currently an option. So it's a quickly evolving time and space, clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when we talked earlier, I mean, we just talked gave a couple examples of sort of direct to consumer ways that a brand, a food and drink brand, can connect, create a relationship. When you and I just connected a little earlier to talk about today, you said for D2C, when it comes to food and drink brands, it's not if, but how.
Right.
Maybe you can just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's been interesting to see that's another change that I think has happened pretty quickly in 2020, that even going into last year, I think there was a lot of hesitation or maybe pessimism around just launching a DTC channel for your brand. So people still had questions around, is it worth the effort? Like, why should we do it? Does it, if we're an established brand, does it really make sense for us? If we're an emerging brand, is it worth the effort and kind of investment to build that out? And I think that's changed, where now you have people asking how quickly they can launch a DTC program if they're seeing slowness in the retail channels, or they're seeing backlogs on inventory at some of their e-tail partners. Now they want to have more control over that channel. Which is great. I think the more adoption, the better. But I think it needs to still change. The question needs to change from how quickly we can launch it up to first taking a step back and asking yourself, why you're launching it, or what is kind of that guiding light. Is it availability as a new brand? As I mentioned earlier, one of the biggest challenges right up front in store or traditional retail with any brand is gaining shelf space, especially in the beverage world. There's slotting fees. There's a DSD network. It's obviously a massive investment and challenge. So looking at the online space, a little bit different. There's not really those same challenges. So is that the play early on? Is it more for consumer insights? Is it a testing ground or launch pad for new products, new platforms? Is it building that community or engagement or loyalty kind of program that we were talking about earlier? I think I think at the end of the day, those that are doing it well are obviously kind of hitting all of those notes. But I think each brand should be deciding right off bat is like, what is that kind of guiding light for themselves with a DTC channel, because that should then influence how you're building out your DTC experience, what you're highlighting in that shopper journey, that experience on site. And I really think that should be the guiding light, because some of those, some of those immediate or most obvious choices about, just viewing it as a, sales channel, if you're a successful brand and you do gain, national distribution, widespread availability, that's going to then cannibalize and have an impact on that sales channel. So if I think there's been some DTC brands that's been the case, where they viewed DTC as a primarily sales channel, and as they grew their retail network, their DTC business, kind of plateaued. So that's where I think long term you need to find that guiding light and see how you're going to leverage that for the broader business and collective brand. At HealthAid, we're really viewing that as I mentioned, building that community. We're viewing that, we've launched a number of new products this year. We have our new HealthAid Booch Pop line that we've launched on e-commerce first. We launched a few new flavors just over the last couple of weeks. We launched a new product line, HealthAid Plus, as well on e-commerce. So really using that as a testing ground and opportunity to gain early insights about our new products line, different flavor rankings. And then that's obviously going to help us as well with our retail channels in what flavors we're maybe focusing on with our retailers, or which product lines we're prioritizing. So that's for us where we're really seeing an opportunity, and super excited to continue to build that out.
Awesome, Calvin. The that wide role of e-com of building out the direct to consumer channel, multiple options from sales to insights to loyalty, but then also supporting the e-tail side, your channel partners, sales, and the sales teams there, and then you've got all these sort of non-owned channels, right, that you've got to touch and interact with consumers on. So it's a tremendous amount of content, right, that you have to make for all this. And you were talking about at Spindrift, you had different comms tasks, right, for different channels, for different moments in a consumer, different audiences. I don't know exactly what you were doing there, but you described, you found an insight around what you wanted to show, and you wanted then had to communicate that differently. Maybe at Celtra we talk about this content gap, this sort of ever increasing amount of content and fragmentation of channels, and then but usually flat or declining or semi-increasing production resources. Maybe you can talk a little bit about how HealthAid kind of handles that content gap.
Yeah, and when we were talking earlier, I mentioned, but it takes a village is really kind of the best way to describe it today. I mean, it's a huge focus for us, and a huge requirement. And on top of that, for HealthAid, since we are so focused on being that leader in gut health, and along with that, there is a lot of education that goes along with that. So even as we go forward, that's a huge content need for us, and it's not a set it and forget it. It'll be a continuing and ever growing need. So how we kind of view it is that we do have, we kind of source multiple different creative partners and content sources. So we have an in-house team focused on copywriting, on content topics, on building that out and kind of that framework. And then we do have agency partners that really are helping from a strategic lens in building out that kind of thematic messaging and kind of through line through all that content. And really setting that framework for content buckets and needs, both on the website and across the entire web ecosystem. As you kind of mentioned, we also have our e-tail network to support. So launching a content syndication platform that we're launching this year. That's a massive network that we have 40 plus SKUs. We have how many different retailers that we're then syndicating that content. Each one is going to be a different experience, different flow. The product page experience and education opportunity on a Kroger page is going to be different than the product page on a Walmart page. So there's not only getting that and developing that content, but then it's also obviously layering that out for the different places that will then appear. So it's all focused around that, and then where we take this framework, then we layer on additional content partners. So whether that's influencers that we work with, pretty extensively, or content creators, just tapping into those different voices, different creators. Once we have that kind of message and voice and kind of objective with each campaign, it's then working with them with that through line to get those different takes as well on the content. And so that's a big focus for the team. And definitely will be next year as we continue to build out our content and education content and online as well.
That's fantastic. There's a ton to do, sounds like.
Everyone's busy.
Maybe just for a moment, you talk about, you joined Health Aid during the pandemic, right? And so maybe, I think it's interesting to talk about sort of remote onboarding and just how do you, I know that you're planning on moving out there, but maybe you can talk a little bit about what it was like to join a company remote and how that went.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I've talked to a few people who are kind of in the same boat. Even at Health Aid, there's quite a few of us as well that have joined during the pandemic, and it's definitely been a unique experience not having that in-person interaction, and so it's definitely been challenging from that standpoint. I mean, obviously, as we're doing right now, the Zoom calls, the video calls, the brainstorm sessions, it's not nearly as enjoyable as being in person and being able to have that human interaction. So it's been challenging, but it's also been, I think, good in the sense that already I think e-commerce is a very cross-functional area. You're working with many different facets and departments. And in a way, the remote working has actually facilitated that or enabled that even better, because now, whether it's e-commerce on the digital e-commerce side, where maybe are more apt to be able to communicate or setting up Zoom calls, what have you. But now that everybody's doing it, I think it's been much easier to collaborate that cross-functionally, set up a quick cross-functional call to talk through an upcoming project. So it's actually, I think, enabled that more easily than it might otherwise, where you would have to coordinate in-person space. You would have to make sure everybody's in the office at the same time. So I think it's actually enabled that in a different way. But then it's also just been, it's taken, I think, it's required more time up front to make sure that I'm connecting with our team members, making sure that I'm spending a lot more of that time, since it's all remote and that is just a very different experience from being in person, being in the office, and getting that same experience and soaking that in, actually in person. So I think it's changed things, some for the better, some for the worse. But I think the benefits have been definitely that enablement for cross-functional kind of partnership with the various teams.
Yeah, that's great. It's been we've seen similar things at Steltra, just in terms of there's benefits, but there's big challenges, and some of that stuff around this collaboration is really can be tricky. I mean, especially when you're really used to and you haven't met people yet. Maybe just you've been at a mix of challenger brands and what is it? What are the advantages a challenger brand has in today's market, where there is all this fragmentation and e-com so important? Maybe just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the biggest benefit is around speed. I think that really is the biggest benefit. I don't think that's a huge surprise to everybody, but obviously the ability to pivot to go to market much quicker than maybe some more established, larger competitors, that really is an advantage, especially in the e-com and digital space. I know we had a recent example of that at Health Aid, where, as I mentioned, we launched a new product line. We started with three flavors, saw an opportunity to increase the flavor options, add another variety pack for consumers as they were trying this new product line. So in a matter of a little under 2 months, we produced the 2 new products, built out this new variety pack, and we're able to launch this prior to Prime Day the other week, since that was kind of our goal to get that live. So at a a larger company, that product development timeline might be a year to 2 years. You might be able to cut that down with a lot of effort, but just the ability to quickly spin things up like that is great. And it is the same thing from just doing a digital marketing lens, and the ability to say, okay, well, you want to test out this new marketing channel, whether that's OTT or connected TV, or we want to launch our SMS marketing channel. Just the ability that with which we can have a meeting with our brand team, make sure we're aligned on messaging, make sure we're aligned on creative voice, and then hit the ground running. It just really enables that speed and quickness, which is really an advantage, but it's also, we have to use our leg up and our advantages where we can, since we don't have, and typically don't have, the budgets compared to some of our larger competitors, at brands that I've been in at the past.
Yeah, sure. Fantastic. So speed, take advantage of speed, play to your strengths. And that's incredible to launch under 2 months to add to the sample pack.
Our ops team, they were phenomenal. I owe them a couple of bottles of champagne for that.
That's fantastic. That sounds like a new product you could launch, a champagne.
Yeah, there we go.
So what, we're talking about fragmentation. We're talking about all these options that we have as people, as consumers, to find the thing we like, sample, move through it, buy it any way we want. What does the future look like for beverage consumers? I mean, how, not just the choice, but rather, how are we buying drinks a few years down the line?
Yeah, I think it's always, because it's interesting to look back, because that's one of those things too, where your expectations or what you think is going to happen likely won't exactly end up happening, just because there's a technology or development that nobody knew. Obviously, COVID was going to hit this year, so that's changed a lot of things unexpectedly. But going back to even a couple of years ago, I think there was a wide expectation that voice was going to be the newest and biggest thing. That obviously hasn't played out as especially on consumables or grocery. When you're purchasing groceries, just that the voice shopping is not quite the same experience. So thinking about that, I think the two ways or kind of technology that I see the most promise are SMS, as you kind of mentioned. Obviously, that's been pretty well adopted for the most part at this point, but I think it's become more mainstream and more adopted just for typical and average shopping habits. I mean, even going back to Instacart, people are already getting familiar with that, where they're texting their shopper about if they need a different item or they want to swap out an item. So I think people are getting more used to that. And then the other one is more kind of that, I guess, AI logic or kind of consistent, repeat order, kind of anticipated orders. So whether that's like a scale that you're putting your kombucha on, and then once it gets to a certain weight, automatically reordering that next shipment. That's going to become, especially on the consumable sides, that's most people have pretty consistent kind of usage patterns and behaviors day over day. So that's one of the easiest ones for predictive modeling and ordering to kind of benefit. So I think those off the top really are kind of the biggest opportunities, or kind of the ones that I see succeeding or becoming more adopted in the consumable space.
Nice. The actually, this on the scale side, interestingly, I knew there was a company called Steady Serve in the bev alcohol. Did you know them? They had a scale for they had something like that for the bars, basically to replenish for kegs, but I'm not sure how they did. But it's interesting that it actually might take off at the consumer side.
And the consumer side, yeah.
Yeah, maybe just a couple last questions for me. I've tried to incorporate some from the audience, but we'll go specifically to them in a second. What's one piece of e-com advice you would give to a new drink startup?
Yeah, so I think it's going back to that kind of topic earlier around DTC, and it's really just as important as kind of determining that brand ethos, that point of difference. It is just as important for that early DTC development, is to, again, finding and figuring out what is that guiding light. How are you going to be leveraging DTC for your brand, for your business, and really making that firmly established early on. I think that's crucial to having a sustainable DTC model and business in the long run. As I mentioned, as you grow, hopefully grow your in-store presence and national availability. That will have an impact on the sales side of the DTC channel. So just knowing that up front and setting those long-term plays and goals for DTC, I think is hugely important.
Nice. So if there's any startups on the call, and then what about the inverse, right? What about a piece of e-com advice you'd give an incumbent or a heritage brand?
I think it's interesting because it's almost like a lot of the early kind of winners in the food and beverage space, even as an emerging or sort of like a kind. I think what the risk is that you actually can become complacent. You've got this early lead, you've got a massive part, share of the category online. And then you have another challenger come brand and viewing you as, that established brand. And, if you aren't looking at and constantly kind of, looking on the horizon and checking both sides to see who's kind of coming for you, you can be caught by surprise, just as some of these early challenger brands did to the more established CPG. And I think the same thing applies to just technology as a whole. So as we talk about, you can't be complacent with your presence on, your DTC channel on your Amazon and Walmart. You need to make sure that you're constantly looking at what is the next development, as we were just talking about from a technology side. Is it, if you weren't investing in Instacart, last year or a couple of years ago, you likely missed out on, as much opportunity or growth that you could have seen this year, or, other e-commerce retailers. If you're missing out on new developments like a Thrive Market, that's just opportunity that if you're not, constantly staying ahead of the competition and curve and constantly being on the lookout for what's next, what's upcoming, you can quickly become outpaced or be left behind if you aren't, keeping watch.
Would you say it makes sense for large incumbents to have the central e-com team responsible for finding that innovation, or does it make sense to allow it to live at the edge of the organization in a particular product or a particular group? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it does make sense to have it still within the e-commerce kind of team or structure, but I almost think it's kind of having different subsets within the e-commerce team where you kind of have almost a innovation team within the e-commerce division where you both from a product standpoint, but as well as a platform and technology standpoint. So you're looking at whether it's new variety packs, new flavors you're missing out from an e-com perspective. But then also technology platform. I think it really does make sense just because the unique differences within the digital channel to have that housed within e-commerce, the e-commerce structure in and of itself.
Nice, excellent, interesting. And all right, so I got a couple questions here. I'm going to just read off to you.
Awesome.
So first off, as you hire new talent for the marketing team or for your e-com team, what skills are really important to you?
Yeah, so I think I guess data analytics, being really good with numbers and quick with numbers is hugely important, both from a P&L standpoint, but also whether that you're dealing with massive consumer data sets, being able to as I mentioned, predictive modeling. So skills and ability with data modeling, predictive analysis, like that's super important. I would say, and it's less of a quantitative or kind of piece, but more of a qualitative, just in terms of like, I think fitting the kind of mold of a challenger brand, having that same mindset where you aren't afraid to kind of push the boundaries, to break things. I think that's a great thing with digital marketing, is that you're going to test a million different things that ultimately don't work, but you do that so you can find either the one thing that works or kind of like this great takeaway that then you can kind of bring into a broader based marketing campaign. So I think just having that mentality about constantly wanting to test, that hunger to try new things and test things out, on top of that skill set, I think that's just innate quality for individuals on the digital marketing side that I think is hugely invaluable.
Yeah, Galvin, I agree. I think of it as that thrill about the thrill for curiosity and discovery, right? And and
100%.
and that gleam looking at the data set to say, to hunt and find that insight.
Exactly.
We've got one more question. I think we're at time, but I don't see our host, so I'll go ahead and ask it. When it comes to communicating with your consumers, how does Health-Ade think about brand purpose, and how does that impact your approach to e-com and marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier around, Health-Ade is all centered around, providing bubbly beverages for your gut and gut health. That is really kind of our through line. So along with that, gut health is such an important factor with just general health and wellness. So I think having that be kind of at the forefront and in kind of direction with all of our content, all of our messaging, that for us is the guiding light, and that goes along with, as we're looking to be this content and kind of lead for education on gut health. That's really how we're building out our content blocks and our content strategy, again, with that through line of gut health and providing that result for the end consumer to provide that healthy and wellness kind of end state. So I think that's just kind of the guiding light for us, and that dictates how the different messaging channels and strategies that we put in place.
Nice. Thank you, Calvin. This has been great. Really appreciate
it. This is great.
And really interesting.
Same here. No, absolutely.
Thanks so much, Eli and Calvin. It's just so great to see how much you guys have grown. Your co-founder, Vanessa, you joined us at Whole Foods headquarters a bit over a year ago to tell us all about the whole brand story and everything. And from then, now you have this huge D2C site and all these flavors with Booch Pop and Health-Ade Plus. It's incredible. And now they have you. I mean, you're the e-commerce Amazon expert around here. So it's really,
so who knows what's going to happen a year from now? Yeah, it's a lot can happen. So.
It's gonna
exactly.
And you have Shrey too. Shrey's a good friend of mine. So
we're so lucky to have him. So yeah, we got a great team over here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what you guys come up with next. Like this recurring revenue bundle with the subscription is brilliant. And I mean, you just make it easy for people to subscribe. So
that's the goal. So that's good. That's always good to hear.
Yeah. I did hear that you were an avid coffee drinker. So have you been making your own coffee at home?
I have.
And
yeah,
if
I
so,
think
what
I've got
beans
it down.
you use?
Oh man, so I got it down to a science. I mean, I was a little rough at the a few months ago, but now every day that I'm 3 cups of coffee a day, I've got my pour over routine down to a science. So I typically I like to go through different brands, but typically like some Guatemalan beans is typically my go-to, and you can't go wrong.
Okay, noted. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Calvin and Eli. Hopefully we'll have you both back again soon.
Thank you.
Enjoy your weekend.
So
Cheers.
Thanks again, Pearl.
All righty. So thanks so much to Calvin and Eli for closing out the day on Future Food and Beverage. We're so grateful for all our speakers for joining us today. I know I personally took so much from each of these sessions. From the Rundles, aka recurring revenue bundles, to authentic brand partnerships. We have so much to learn from these brand marketing executives. We hope all of you will join us again. We have another live cast on Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for a virtual summit on brand storytelling with our partners at Jukin Media. We will be joined by our senior marketing leaders from Barstool Sports, Instagram, Hulu, Samsung, Ulta Beauty, and many more. Thank you for joining, everyone, and we hope to see you